Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Delphi Dirt Victims News on Air. I am your host, Erica Morse, founder of Victims News Online and Victims News on Air. And I have also been a lifelong investigative journalist, mostly covering crime, courts, police, and public corruption throughout Northwest and Central Indiana. Tonight, I will be joined by a dear friend, Prof. He and I are going to sit down and do a deep dive into the May 22nd episode of VPI, Vinnie Politan Investigates, on Court TV Network. And we're going to look at the four topics that Vinnie and I spent an hour the other night and answer any questions that you guys may have, as long as it does not interfere with Rick's current situation going into these oral arguments and maybe a retrial. Cross our fingers. So anyway, let's get started. Real quick on Friday evening. So Friday evening, you saw the show, but Vinny and I actually taped this like a week ago. So when this thing aired, I made two missteps because I wasn't given a lot of time on this. The day that the oral arguments order came down from the appellate court, Vinny sent me a text and said, "Hey, can you tape with me in an hour on Delphi?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure." Well, I was like, had just gotten back from a bike ride, so I had to jump in the shower and get ready. I didn't have a chance to review notes. As Chris said earlier, if you know Chris, my partner in anti-crime, especially me, I am often asked to answer questions on the fly. And as I've also said many times, no one person can keep all of this information together in just the Delphi case, let alone Flora and all the corresponding cases. So I made two missteps during that taping. One, I actually went back and corrected, but it wasn't edited back in. So it is what it is. But I want to correct those real quick because we've got some people out there trying to be my mommy. And I had a mommy. And I also spent 3.5 years working in a college newspaper and attending college for journalism. So let's get it real clear that I know how to do retractions, really well. So I actually went back and fixed the first one, which was Bree Wilbur. I had said, I think I said Wilson or Wilson, Wilson. I was coming up with the name. And then a little bit later, I went back and said, "Oh, Bree Wilbur." So the fact that that didn't make that into the final cut, grow up. Like, mistakes happen on lives and even on pre-records all the time. The show must go on. The problem is when people nitpick that one thing and decide that they're going to stand on that little human error and use it as proof that someone is not credible. As I said to somebody online the other night, it's most likely that I have forgotten more about the Delphi case than most people even know about it. And that's not me being facetious. That's me knowing that I read and damn near memorized 8 terabytes of data about this case. So there's just no reason for that nonsense. The second one was in relation to Greg Ferenczi, the Terre Haute police officer who was killed after being one of the authors of the Odin report. I made such a minor error, okay? Apparently, I stated that the Greg Ferenczi was killed inside his office when in fact he was killed right outside. But let's be clear. The Molotov cocktail that pulled him out of his office was thrown into his office. I think at a very fast pace when it comes to cases sometimes because I have so much data in my brain. And so I knew what I meant, and Vinny knew what I meant, and and Chris watching it and Prof and everybody, they all knew what I meant. But apparently that became some type of proof that I'm not a credible witness or a credible reporter. Again, I'm probably forgetting more about this case than most folks will ever know. Okay. The podcasters who follow this case, okay, because the majority of them, that's what they do. They're not working in this case. They claim to work in this case because they know people, they've met people, but the majority of them are really just following it and then giving their kind of opinion, commentary. Those voices don't impact the case unless they're out there causing problems for Rick Haley. Okay? So let's just say it like that. But if the goal of everyone here is to get justice for the girls and to get justice for Rick Allen and get the truth out there, then this nitpicking of experts probably needs to stop. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. Okay? I'll just leave it at that. Except to say that the person who is making the most noise in the last couple months seems to have a personal interest in protecting the reputation of Shane Meehan. For those of you who may or may not know, Shane Meehan is the man accused of shooting Greg Ferenczi outside his office or outside the federal building after the Molotov cocktail was thrown inside. So if we're going to get technical, we'll get technical. And defending Shane Meehan and claiming that I'm picking on a man accused of killing a task force agent who was investigating Abby and Libby's murders. I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree on that one. So every time she speaks, she's defending Shane Meehan in a very odd way. And if we got to go there, we got to go there. So, all right. We have so much to talk about tonight. And if you're joining us off the court TV, sorry about the housekeeping. Let's get through it. I am going to bring in my amazing friend and cohort on a lot of levels, and that is Prof. Um, are you ready there, sir? Looks like you are ready. Happy Sunday, my friend.
I'm ready, but I think I was muted. Hey, everybody, and hey,
Oh shoot.
Erica. Yeah.
Well, I got my little intro and knock the crap off out of the way. I want to take a minute to say hi to everybody who's joining us tonight. Um, we wanted to kind of give an option to those who weren't watching the Indy races. I'm an Indiana girl. I know kind of how that Sunday night thing can be. So um, I want to say hi to Masterpiece and Rebby and criminal sociology. We've got Pat in here, Critter Mama, David Rogers. Um, who else do we have? Nicole is in here with us. Hey girl, we haven't seen you in a while. Did you get the notification this time, Nicole? I hope you did. Uh, Cindy, oh my gosh, it's been a while. Silenced Woman is here, probably playing with her wrench already. Mustang and Pertinent. A lot of our people are in here, Prof. Mommy and Deb and so
Steffa.
many. Giuseppe.
Steffa's there. Hey, Steffa.
Giuseppe, wasn't he the one asking like the great questions in your live last week?
Oh, yeah, Giuseppe be bringing it.
Support. Oh my God. Steph, how are you? Thank you. I haven't seen you in a while, but
David
it's been a while.
Rogers.
David Rogers, I know.
Mhm.
Oh, I think Kelly and Dan are here. I saw somebody say hi to Kelly. Goddess is in the house. Tammy Martin, Lowered Customs. We've got quite a few joining us right now, and I think that we'll probably get more as the night progresses. But if not, if folks are busy doing barbecues or hanging out with the fam, they can do it on replay. And, if they have questions, they can put them in the comment section. And we'll look at doing another one next time. So let me see here. Where did that go?
David Rogers.
David Rogers with the super sticker. Thank you, my friend. You're so sweet. All right. So, Matt Payton, hello. Haven't seen you in a hot minute. I talked to my friend Vinnie, as you know, and actually in between that time, it sounds like things began to progress from the time I taped that show to the time that we then aired it a week later. Shane Meehan has apparently been found fit to stand trial. So this thing is getting ready to move forward. I'm pretty excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, everybody, I'm going to stop looking at the comments section for a second because this is when I start to get distracted. But we have got a lot to cover tonight. What Prof has been so kind to do, aw, thank you, Chris, is pull together all of the documents that cover the topics that Vin and I covered in our deep dive. So everything that I said is coming with a receipt tonight. I know that upsets some people, but thank you to Prof for his hard work and for putting this together. Thank you to Vinnie for letting me share that, those topics with Prof so we could get you in on that and on the same page. And then we've got towards the end, we'll have a few teasers on this RICO case situation because we have some serious stuff popping in northern Indiana. Thank you, Tammy, so much. And I know folks don't necessarily see the connections yet between what's going on in Operation Porterhouse Parlay, but Prof, I'm going to shut up right there.
Hey, the heat is on. The heat is coming down from the top, and it's on. And good luck, corrupt law enforcement in Indiana and Illinois and Ohio.
Didn't that affidavit say he corrupted several people?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And was bookie for 20. Yeah, but whole other subject.
Oh yeah, that cop who was a bookie. Yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff coming. Information wise, that Prof is like giddy for doing these breakdown shows, but I pulled him on tonight to do this because I think it's so very, very important. So we're going to kind of kick off this Q&A right away. I don't want to waste any time. Thank you to everyone for the super stickers so far. Masterpiece had a question all the way at the top. I laughed when I saw this because this has been such an issue for me. This topic was the bad issue for me. Did investigators ever check Rick Allen's Carhartt jacket for manufacturing tags or dates to see if it was made before the Delphi murders and or compare it to the Bridge Guy jacket? Great question. I've covered this topic a couple times before, and because there's still a really good possibility now of a retrial, I still have to dance around a full answer. But what I can say is that my firm belief, and that of many others, is that tag on that jacket exonerates Rick Allen and proves he couldn't have been there that day and wasn't there that day. Carhartt jackets have a lot of information on the tags and allow you to do things like determine when they were made, when they were manufactured, and actually track them all the way to sale and beyond. So none of that was discussed at trial, but I can tell you that I was adamant about that jacket. Kathy Allen was adamant about that jacket. Chris had my back 100% on that jacket, as did others. So I'll kind of leave it at that. And then, Prof, I don't know if you had anything to add just on that question.
There's a receipt for that jacket, but we'll talk about that later. All right, another news. Guys, we are here tonight essentially to review and examine Vinnie Politan's hot take on Delphi, which just dropped recently, and we've had a lot of noise about, and that's why I'm coming. I think I'm coming to more so help Erica sit back and be able to answer questions, and I've put together a bunch of the substantiating evidence to accompany Vinnie's new stream that just dropped over on Court TV. So as we get into it, save your questions for down the road, because I think we have a lot to get through. But we're gonna have some clips, and then we're going to have some discussion. But I just wanted to jump in and say before we start that I really want you guys to examine. Sometimes with this community, this case is so complicated. This entire conspiracy overall is so complicated with all of these cases, because Eric and I are working on several cases, not just Delphi. We just haven't talked about the others much, but what we're seeing here is that this is all a huge conspiracy, and it makes it very complicated on every level. So I say to you, when you're looking at this public commentary across the spectrum, pay attention to what you're seeing, because I just wanted to chime in, and I made a post about this. After I saw Vinnie's episode, I was ecstatic. I was elated, because I thought, wow, you have someone with a platform where 50 to 100,000 people are going to see this imminently. And everyone should be celebrating. Everyone who believes in justice for Abby and Libby and who believes in Rick Allen's innocence should be absolutely ecstatic that someone with a major platform like this is taking the position that they are going to boldly say that Richard Allen was absolutely railroaded by the state of Indiana. And for anyone out there to be claiming that they are here advocating for Rick Allen's innocence and to have a problem with the fact that someone on a major platform, a former prosecutor like Vinnie Politan, is taking that position, you should examine. And to give Erica and Christine and even others in this who actually touched the insides of this case a little latitude, I should say this. I think there's two. Some of you out there have unreasonable expectations of individuals. You have unreasonable expectations of Erica. You have unreasonable expectations of Andy Baldwin. You have unreasonable expectations of myself and of anyone else. We are all human beings. Andy Baldwin is a human being. Richard Allen is a human being. Everyone who's touched this case are human beings. And you all who are being so unreasonable in your expectations, such that you are trying to destroy people who are here actually getting the message out. Like, you think about this. Right now, Vinnie's video is sitting at 50,000 views. This message is getting out, and you should be celebrating that. And that's the reason I decided to come on tonight, because I'm absolutely furious that the entire community is not celebrating and promoting this, knowing that the message is getting out to the masses, because this is a message that needs to get out. And that's why tonight we're going to reiterate that message and substantiate it with documentation. And as usual, Erica and Christine are going to open themselves up for questioning. Uh, and that's another criticism that I want to address before we get rolling is I've seen all of this whining about them refusing or not hearing you. Well, let me just say this. Eric and Christine are absolutely accessible. Their emails are public, okay? They all have social media all over the place. This entire concept that you are being obstructed from getting information to Eric or Christine is absolutely bonkers. So maybe what you should reflect upon is the fact that these ladies have had a large amount of discovery, a large amount of time, and have done a large amount of one-on-one communication with people. And therefore, they have to prioritize information that is incoming, just like Andrew Baldwin had to prioritize information incoming. And maybe your whack job shit don't matter enough to drop everything we're doing and run with what you want us to run with. So with that being said, I just want to say everyone needs to relax a bit. And how about you put that projection back on yourself? Because I notice a lot of that from this community is projection, pure projection. How about if you got something you believe is important, explore it to the absolute depths of your possibility, and then run out and make content and spread it all over the world as much as you can and get it in front of all the eyes you can and be thorough and meticulous, comprehensive, and you do you. These personal attacks on people who are actually out here getting the message out is insane. And it goes for me too, because in speaking on this, obviously, I'm one, right? I'm one who's received all of this projection and backlash, which is not understandable because I look at the 7,000 hours of content I've done, absolutely slaughtering, dissecting, and exploring every detail of this case and laying it out for the public, whether it's on the community page or all the live streams, every single aspect of this case going back years. And it's just funny. The people who don't do nothing but just complain would try to discount that amount of work.
Hey,
So,
Prof, I
yep.
interject. I'm so sorry. Could you do me a favor and turn your mute down or level down a little bit? I've got earbuds in and
Mm-hmm.
all the way down, and for some reason, you're coming in like
Okay.
hyper
How's
loud.
this?
Let's see.
How's
Give
this?
me a check. Oh my God, so much better. I don't know if you saw it. I
I
spent
turned it
25
down.
Thank you. I spent 25 years working in the radio industry, and I was actually the concert queen, they called me, in Indiana and Ohio. And I would spend most of my concerts standing right in front of those speakers because
Mm-hmm.
I was, giving out tchotchkes or working with the band or the people behind backstage. It felt like I was back in rock radio, standing right up against a house, speaker in the house. And I was like, oh my God. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I want to get to some of these questions. At Raphael Webb, you wanted to know if I received your tip in 2024. Yes. As a matter of fact, I can go straight to it. You sent the tip on 12/23 of 2024 at 10:26 p.m. and then you followed up on 1/8 of 25. Your tip was actually very interesting, and it resulted in Chris and I doing a lot of digging. Here's what I'll say: at no time did we connect your person to the Delphi case, but I have no problem saying that you may have picked up on somebody who needs to be looked at for other things and other reasons. So I appreciate you bringing that up because that's one of those that like is probably sitting in a notebook somewhere and needs to be looked at again. It's been about 3 years since Chris and I have seen that name. But as of right now, no specific connection to committing these crimes. So sorry, we've got some new people and I'm looking. Hiawatha apartment. I'm just making sure I'm getting all these questions. Carla Ann, this case with all these lies and chaos, billboards begging for tips creates mass diversions. How can you even begin to keep it all straight? So the easy answer is I can't. One person cannot keep all of this straight. Somewhat by design. Remember, we're working with a group of people. What was it you said the other night when we were on the phone, Prof? You said power structure or structure, power. What?
Well, they're
People
protecting the power structure at every level, but we're
yeah.
seeing that a lot right now on the boots on the ground with the arrest and indictments. But we're looking at power structures.
Yeah. So one person can't just keep it all in check. Chris, when we got Discovery, Chris and I got an 8 terabyte hard drive that we then split. We didn't take all of this at once. She took certain sections. I took certain sections. We had daily conversations and phone meetings to compare and update the other on the most pertinent information. And then once we each finished our obligated sections, we then started on the others. So the way we were doing this was based on a 4-month delay in our licensing because, listen, I'm just saying Doug Carter was in charge of approving the PI licensing at that time, the PI agency licensing. So he didn't seem like he was in a big hurry to approve an agency that was going to work for Rick Allen's defense. So there you go. Thank you, quietly. You guys are gross. Are you going to the hearing? So I'm pretty sure I know who that is. I want
That's
to be
attention-seeking trailer trash. Just ignore.
okay. Well, I do want to answer questions because I don't have anything to hide. I would like to go to the hearing, and I intend to go to the hearing. I understand that this Shane Meehan supporter is out running around claiming that a cop in Indiana wants to serve me at that hearing. Apparently, according to this person, I accused him of committing a crime. Well, I did accuse him of committing a crime, but not the one that is being stated. I accused him of drug trafficking, not human trafficking. So my response to you would be, have him serve me the way Dave Vito and Matt Hoffman's attorneys served me, which was cease and desist via email, or just hit me with a lawsuit. I have no problem responding to a lawsuit via email. Hell, the DA's office in Cumberland County, North Carolina, served me via email when I was called as a witness to testify in a murder trial back in January. So there's no reason why, if somebody wants to hit me with some type of a civil suit, that they can't find me. As Prof said earlier, my email's very, very findable. But it's victimsnewsonair@gmail.com. Here you go. Here you go, guys. So, serve me there. I will accept an electronic service. It's no problem. Are we good? I think we're good. Are we ready to move to clips and docs? Because I am. All right. You want me to go that first one, Vinnie? You want me to go to the first one with Vin?
The young bodies of Abby Williams and Libby German were found in the woods, both victims of a brutal attack in the middle of the day in the small town of Delphi, Indiana. And very quickly, investigators had a suspect, a man recorded on Libby's phone just before the attack. He became known as the Bridge Guy. But for more than 5 years, the case remained unsolved until a man
Not Rick Allen. Look at the face.
Allen was arrested.
Richard Allen, you child murderer! Why did you do it?
Richard Allen became public enemy number one, and at trial was quickly convicted of murder by the jury in a case where the judge kept the cameras out of the courtroom. This is a strange case because the defense had a viable theory uncovered by police that this was a ritualistic killing committed by some local Odinists.
It is a real thing, and it's scary. I believe they sacrificed a girl and killed another one.
But the judge did not allow any of that evidence in front of the jury. And now the defense has been granted an opportunity for oral arguments in front of the appellate court to try to get a new trial and to present their evidence to a new jury. Richard Allen was railroaded. He had a case. He had evidence that pointed in another direction that he was not able to present. And now his attorneys will have an opportunity to do that in oral arguments at the appellate division. In this episode, we're going to take a look at that evidence that the defense did not get to present. We'll bring in a PI who's been working the case to get some insight. I'm Vinnie Politan. Let's investigate.
So, first and foremost, let me say this to you. Vinnie Politan was a prosecutor. His father was a judge. He has reserved his opinion on this situation for a long time. He had reporters covering it. He had a reporter inside that courtroom covering this trial who had an office set up in Delphi at the time. He has not rolled over easily to say those words. Richard Allen was railroaded. And we talked ad nauseum over the last 3 years where I was pushing and fighting. And he's innocent. I'm telling you, we're proving it. We're proving it. We're proving it. As soon as I can talk to you, I will prove this. So now all of a sudden he's starting to hear things and see things. And when what was it you said, a 7.2% of appellates get the oral arguments, numbers like that impress a prosecutor. A number like that impresses a prosecutor. So he did not make that statement lightly. I had to earn those words. Barb earned those words with her coverage and her extensive interviews with Ron Logan and Keegan Kline. Because you guys it hasn't dawned on some people yet, apparently, that I'm not the only person who's been affiliated with that network who has received confessions from others. Just remember, Barb had Keegan Kline. You know what I mean? She had those conversations. She's talked to a lot of other people. And we'll just leave it at that. So, Prof, your thoughts?
Yeah, my thought is that was groundbreaking for him to take a bold stance, and despite any clapback that he knows is going to come his way, to say Richard Allen was railroaded, bold statement. But my theory is that it's taken this time, because Vinnie was a prosecutor. He had to wait. I think what happened here, he read the appeal. He read the state's response, and then when the appellant's reply came back, he read the appellate's reply. Then he saw that the oral arguments were granted. So he's looking at all of this, and he realizes the obvious, which is that the appellate attorneys have presented a compelling case, documented, substantiated, and well laid out. The state had no response to it other than innocent mistake, harmless error. And I think that there's a lot of people who are starting to realize or come to terms with what's happening here is on a facial, on the face of it all, it's becoming really obvious that Richard Allen was railroaded and wrongfully convicted. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad to see it. Do you want to move on?
I do. Give me one.
All right. I think we're getting into it now.
Yeah. Can you bring your level back down just a little bit more? I don't know if it's my earbuds or your levels, but
probably your earbuds, because my levels have been low here, but I'm going to back off a bit from the mic.
You know what, Bart Simpson, please tell us the connection to Shane Meehan. I'm dying to know. There was a live, apparently, that was done about me last night. Snay was on it. A couple others were on it. The person hosting that may have a direct connection to Shane Meehan. That's being investigated right now. And not by me, by a private investigator in another state, whom I've hired, a colleague. And let me make it real clear. PIs don't do free favors for each other. That's not how that works. PIs have to enter into a contract with one another because ethics come into play if that private investigator then has to testify in a hearing about what he or she uncovered. So I'm not wasting my time on a troll. I'm getting to the bottom of why someone has taken an interest in shutting me up about Greg Ferenczi's death, Greg Ferenczi's murder. Because this person came on after my first appearance with Vinnie back on Delphi after the sentencing when the gag order was up, and then apparently lost her shit last night about my discussion of Ferenczi on Friday night with Vinnie, and that's of concern. So I hope that answers your question, Bart. But yeah, we're getting a lot. Okay, can't hear Erica now. All right, how's that? Sorry, guys, I turned my volume down. If it's still super loud on my end, I'll just switch to the headphones. I hope that answers your question, Bart. I saw another one in there. Critter mama. This has become a slippery slope and we aren't even out of the shit slide yet. Yeah, there's a lot. Masterpiece. How did Ron Logan fit into the early timeline of the Delphi investigation? What evidence later led investigators to focus on Richard Allen instead? Prof, could you take that one just because that goes to stuff I'm not supposed to really talk about yet?
What is the question?
It was about how did Ron Logan fit into the early timeline and what evidence later led Ellie to focus on Rick instead.
I have to see that before I answer it. How did Ron Logan actually fit into the early timeline?
The way I'm reading it is, does he fit into that early timeline? And I mean, we think he does. He says he does.
I don't know. They let Ron Logan off the hook is what happened. Okay. They let Ron Logan off the hook. They knew he was involved. They let him off the hook on purpose, like they did everyone else. And I don't know. They focus on Richard Allen because he wasn't connected to the Chomos or the Dropbox. And
correct.
Sorry, Masterpiece. I just I want to focus on doing this show right now. And so I'm thinking I'd like to really hit the points that Vinnie brought out in his episode, because they were about this appeal that's really interesting. And so I'm super excited to kind of get into it. But yeah, when they kicked the FBI off the case, they let Ron Logan off the hook and everyone else that actually was involved. Now I don't hear Erica at all. Yeah, basically when they kicked the FBI off the case, that's when they totally destroyed everything. And then after destroying all the evidence that led to the actual killers, then they were left with what are they going to do to make this go away forever, because the community wanted this monkey off their backs. Here comes Richard Allen, thanks to the YouTubers, because it's another thing. Kathy Shank had nothing to do with finding Rick Allen. The YouTubers found Rick Allen and tipped him in enough times that they finally realized they should use this guy. And that's another fucking lie that's being told I'm absolutely sick of. Okay. Yeah, we're not hearing Erica at all, so maybe she's muted herself, though. She's saying, wait.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go. I switched out of my earbuds. It's got to be something weird because you were coming in like just a stereo speaker in my ear. Okay, so you're good. We're fighting the mob, Tammy. Don't take the bait and go to the hearing. Yes, I'm back. Silenced. Sorry, guys. Let's go to that second one. Vinnie 2. Vinnie 2. What happened to 1? Did you remove it? Oh, wow, you're quick. Okay, there we go.
Another big.
What's going on with that?
I don't know.
Another big part of the investigation in this case was a look into Odinists, right? This like pagan belief. And trust me, there are people who are legit Odinists who are nonviolent, etc. Here in this case, we are talking about the allegations of violent Odinists. And it's something that became prevalent in correctional facilities. And
Shane Meehan. That's the thing about Shane Meehan, y'all, is Shane Meehan was a correctional officer. Does everyone forget that willingly? Are we trying to deflect? But so sorry, I'll stop interrupting. I'm just saying this is a very interesting point that he's making, that the Odinism extremely prevalent among not only prisoners and inmates, but correctional staff.
Correctional facilities. And in this case, it became a big part of the investigation by law enforcement. And there were members of law enforcement that believed this was some sort of a ritualistic killing done by local Odinists. This theory was born through law enforcement.
Law enforcement.
During those 5 years when this case remained unsolved. So as we talk about these alternative theories that the defense has, you have to remember that they weren't picked out of thin air like many defense teams do in desperate cases where they have no defense. They're kind of throwing things up against the wall, looking for reasonable doubt here and there. All of this is a direct result of the investigation, which again was unsolved for 5 years. However, in this case, the Judge Gull, limited the defense. None of that information got in front of the jury. So the jury heard the evidence against Richard Allen, and some of it's very compelling, and he may very well be guilty. The jury found him guilty. But my concern, and I think the concern of those of us.
Wow.
You want to play that again, Prof?
Something happened with that clip because it wasn't bookended right. I had clipped it a little differently, but that's the main of it. The main of it was law enforcement investigation is where the Odinists come from, okay? And the Vinlanders. And the jury didn't get to hear it.
Is this what you wanted?
Oh yeah. So this is I thought this was the best way, because what we're trying to really get this moving and succinctly establish the basis for this. And I thought this was the best way to do it, because there's hundreds of pages on all of this. I mean, at least 300 to 500 pages on the potential Odinist Vinlander connection. But I thought this was the best way. So I'm going to read these highlighted portions maybe, and we can talk about it. But this is from the affidavit of Todd Click, which says, in June 2018, remember that's a year after the murders, I was approached by Detective Greg Ferenczi and Detective Kevin Murphy regarding the Delphi murders. Both Ferenczi and Murphy were interested in communicating with individuals in the Rushville area that they believed may have been involved in the murders. During the briefings with Detective Ferenczi, I was told that the BAU, or the Behavioral Analysis Unit of the FBI, determined that individuals responsible for the homicides were involved in Nordic beliefs. So let's stop there. Okay. This is for all the extremely special people on the guilty side. Point of fact, the Behavioral Analysis Unit of the FBI in 2018 had determined that the individuals responsible for killing Abby and Libby were involved in Nordic beliefs or belief systems. Okay, that's a point of fact. First sentence of number 5. Next, Detective Ferenczi informed me that there was a group of individuals called the Vinlanders that practice Odinism and Viking-like beliefs that resided in Rushville. Detective Ferenczi further informed me that the Vinlanders formed after a breakup of a white supremacy group called the Outlaw Hammerskins. Fact, fact, fact. I was aware of the Outlaw Hammerskins as they used to operate in Carthage, Indiana, which is near Rushville. During the course of my investigation, I spent dozens of hours reviewing documents, communicating with the team associated with the Delphi investigation, and interviewing numerous witnesses in an attempt to determine whether or not certain individuals in the Delphi area were associated with these crimes. During the case of my investigation, my primary focus was on following individuals: Elvis Fields, Rod Abrams, Johnny Messer, Patrick Westfall, Brad Holder. To the best of my knowledge, Detective Ferenczi was processing his reports and other information through an FBI database. Another fact, okay? FBI database, FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit, Vinlander, Outlaw Hammerskin, Odinist. In contrast, Detective Murphy was processing information through the ISP database. I was processing information through the Spillman database used by Rushville PD. I recall being frustrated with the lack of continuity between the FBI database and the Indiana State Police database, because the two databases were not interfaced and therefore the flow of information was inefficient, unreliable, which means a disconnect. Okay. I also recall being frustrated because we as police officers were not allowed to take any material investigative actions without first reaching up the chain of command and getting the permission of unified command. And so I'm going to stop there, because that's where the real bomb is. Unified command was roadblocking Ferenczi, Click, and Murphy. If you read this for what it's worth, what he's saying, there was frustration because of the disconnect between FBI, ISP, and the locals. Unified command was necessary for greenlighting anything they were doing, and they were putting obstacles up. Upon reviewing the probable cause affidavit supporting Rick Allen's arrest, it became immediately clear to me that the information contained in the affidavit pointing towards Richard Allen's guilt was far less compelling than the totality of the information that Detective Ferenczi, Murphy, and myself had accumulated during the Rushville portion of the investigation. I also noticed that there was absolutely no reference to any of the individuals at all that our team had investigated, nor any association between Odinistic evidence that seemed to tie the crime to the behaviors and actions of the Vinlanders. This revelation was shocking to me. Okay? In the affidavit for probable cause supporting for Rick Allen's home, upon directing this letter towards Mr. McClelland, I heard nothing from Mr. McClelland's office other than members of Unified Command or any members of Unified Command until I received a phone call August 23rd and 25th, which involved brief discussions regarding scheduling. During these phone calls, here you go, it was requested that I meet with Trooper Jerry Doughboy Holman during the week of September 4th, 2023. I was informed that law enforcement officials intended to sit down with me and listen to this, quote unquote, discuss the reason why Richard Allen was responsible for these crimes. I was told Jerry Holman wanted to put my mind at ease. However, during the meeting with Holman and a second detective whose name I don't know, there was a discussion or offering as to why they believed, or no discussion as to why they believe Rich Allen was guilty. I believe the interview was an attempt by them to clean up their loose ends, knowing that they had given very little, if any, attention to the investigative efforts of Ferenczi, myself, and Murphy. It's also true that along with my letter, I prepared a 3-page document summarizing our investigative team's general beliefs about what happened to the girls on the day in question. The summary is a compilation of the ideas, conversations, and conclusions drawn by myself, Detective Murphy, and Detective Ferenczi during our work with the case, and that's it. So here's my point on this. He's immediately establishing the factual basis for law enforcement's case for the origination of the Nordic, Vinlander, Odinist connection to this crime. He's discussing that was in 2018 that the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit developed this information, and he and his partners substantiated it. And then he's expressing frustration at the disconnect between all the agencies and at the roadblocking of Unified Command. And then he expresses the frustration that when he wrote Prosecutor McClelland the letter informing him of this information and that you've got to look into this, they called him in and had Jerry Holman and someone else pull him in and try to milk him for information, and he's taken aback. And like I said, remember what happened to him after that. They set him up using CPS to be arrested and charged on trumped up charges, just like they did you and everyone else. Mm-hmm. And he's still tied up with this. So I think that kind of I thought was the quickest way to the bottom line on this angle of the Odinist connection being coming from law enforcement. And so thank you for entertaining me with that portion, Erica.
No problem. So a couple thoughts on that. Number one, those BAU reports were part of our discovery. So Chris and I have read every single word of them. Their job was profiling, assisting law enforcement, local and state law enforcement with this task force, with resources, with managing and trying to compile and keep track of all these tips, using Orion, because Carla Ann, why was Holder in the hallway? If you're talking about at the police station, it's my understanding he was called back in, and it was reported to me that he was told to delete stuff off his phone. But Todd Click, let me go back to Todd Click. Not only did we see those reports, and I can back up everything, as will Chris, that Todd Click said in that affidavit, but if you were at that July pretrial hearing where Todd Click testified, you'll recall that they didn't just hit him with those charges. They hit him with those charges right after his testimony. The timing of that shows that McClelland went back to his office and sought charges against Click. And I have always, as have others, because I've had conversations with lawyers about this, lawyers who were in that room in that trial, that was done to prevent Todd Click from testifying, just as my charges that they were trying to drum up on me in the middle of trial and get the network to do a hit piece on, by the way, which didn't work. That effort failed. That was done to discredit Todd Click as a witness. It was done to discredit me as a witness. So Jerry Holman pulling in Todd Click and strong-arming him perfectly matches his pattern of doing it to Rick Allen, Kathy Allen. You know, I'm prevented from saying stuff, but here's what I will say. Go back and look at that interrogation video when Kathy's brought in. Look for that Post-it note that's sitting right there. Because those weren't Kathy's words. She was reading a question. Holman had written a question on that Post-it note, handed it to Kathy when he and I think it was Mullins were asking her questions, and said, go in and ask your husband. Think about the question that Kathy Allen asked her husband. Think about the question that's used against Rick all the time. Kathy thought he was a liar. He lied to his wife. No, he didn't. No, he did. Holman is really, here's what Holman's a pro at. Jerry Holman is a pro at sitting someone in front of a video camera and staging a moment that can be used as a very compelling soundbite later down the line. And then he's really good at getting his trusted podcasters, the guys that don't have to do time for child chomo allegations and other things, to release snippets of those moments so that all you see is a wife asking a husband a question. You don't see that the wife was handed a Post-it note and told to pose that question to her husband in front of a video camera, so every Indiana news outlet could then go and air that thing as proof that he's a liar. I just thought I'd point that out. Holman's really good at staging sound bites. Did I lose you, Prof?
No.
Are we ready for clip 3?
Mm-hmm.
There are so many issues, over 100 pages, reading through it. To me, the one thing that really kind of sticks in me, and I never understood why it wasn't part of this case, but could you explain the ritual killing evidence in this case that was excluded by the judge?
There is so much. So in terms of the crime scene itself, those photos are still sealed. So certain aspects of that crime scene are still sealed. But there are very specific rituals to that crime scene, specifically how the girls' bodies were positioned. To there is a tarot card that is the Hangman's card that has come up as a correlation to the crime scene. And then there is this rune, this F rune that appeared on a tree at the base of where one of the girls were located. And it appears to be an F rune, the letter F, drawn in blood. And to hear Indiana State Police say it, it's not part of it, but to hear Jeffrey Turco say it, that is very much a part of a ritualistic aspect to this crime scene. And Jeffrey Turco was the Purdue professor, or is the Purdue professor, who was intentionally hidden from the defense by Indiana State Police. He is an expert in ritualistic crimes and ritualistic aspects. And he wrote a synopsis that we received much, much later on, almost right before trial, where the police had said they'd excluded him as an expert witness because he said there was no ritualistic aspect to the crime scene. Then they even said they couldn't remember his name or how to get in touch with him. They didn't have a contact phone number for him. They didn't have an email address for him. I believe it was Andy Baldwin from the defense team who tracked down Turco, and then they interviewed or deposed him, and Turco said I never said that. As a matter of fact, I was very specific that all of these elements do look like a ritualistic crime scene. But what he was very specific to say was that it looked like an amateur or someone who would just be either trying to stage the crime scene partially, or maybe someone who was doing like an initiation, someone on a very amateur aspect, and that this crime scene definitely had many ritualistic aspects. So real quick, Prof, I want to give a disclaimer here. I did not provide what's coming next because this actually wasn't in our discovery. I want to make this super clear. Are you ready for this?
Let's do the paperwork first.
Okay.
Motion to compel. Yeah. Let's see. Oops.
Hold on.
Oh, did we get out of?
That's all right. That's all right. We'll go back. Motion to compel. That's not it.
No, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. Okay. We're skipping ahead to Turco for some reason. But we're fine. Let's do Turco.
Okay. You want to do the interview with Turco then?
I want to do the paperwork. What is it called? Motion to compel.
Motion to compel. Not it. There we go. Okay. Is that it?
Yeah. No, just as an introduction to what we're going to hear shortly. After the debacle involving the identity of Purdue professor, the defense has no faith the prosecution will produce evidence, blah, blah, blah. As detailed in the Franks, since August 10th, 2023, the defense had asked the prosecutor to identify the Purdue professor, right? Whose findings thwarted investigative efforts to look into Odinism as being involved in the murders. According to Sergeant Jerry Holman, oh, is that name again? The Purdue professor had reviewed the arrangement of certain sticks, okay, left at the crime scene, and concluded that the sticks found on the girls at the crime scene, according to Holman, not represent Odinism or any type of cult worshiping or any type of group that would have committed the crime. However, after his deposition, the defense sought the identity of this professor, who altered the way the case was investigated, according to Holman. No one from the prosecution or law enforcement claimed they could remember the Purdue professor's name. After the defense made several requests from the prosecutor to identify the Purdue professor, the prosecutor sent an email saying, as stated before, we are trying to identify the Purdue professor, but no luck yet. Detective Holman has reached out to the FBI and Purdue has not gotten any response yet. We will continue our endeavors, but may not be able to ever identify him. Okay. The response from the prosecutor seemed utterly preposterous. It had been nearly a month since the defense first made its request for the prosecutor to identify the Purdue professor, and the state police, with all the resources at its disposal, claims it was unable to identify the Purdue professor, even indicating that they may not ever be able to identify the Purdue professor. The prosecutor's email seemed implausible. The mere identity of the Purdue professor is considered discovery that should have been turned over to the defense. His name and report should have been provided to the defense no later than December 14, 2022. Yet on September 6, 2023, the prosecutor told the defense that Jerry Holman and the vast resources of the ISP could not figure out who the professor was or turn over any reports. However, since getting back on the case, the defense has learned that Jerry Holman did, in fact, learn the identity of the Purdue professor. Okay, on August 12, 2023. Holman even had possession of Turco's report, which contradicted Holman's lies in his August 10th, 2023 sworn testimony during the same time. The information contained in paragraph 55 above came directly from Jerry Holman's own fucking report. Pardon the language. Okay. Holman's September 22nd, 2023 report exposed the following concerning the state of Indiana's intentional violation of discovery order due to their attempt to hide the identity of an exculpatory witness. And you guys are about to learn that right now. During the month of August, the defense made multiple requests for the identity who, according to Jerry Holman and Tony Liggett, well, wouldn't you know it, altered the way the case was investigated. By mid-August, Holman knew the identity of the professor, yet throughout all of August and September, McClellan and Holman told the defense that they could not figure out the identity. Okay? Lies. McClellan's September 6, 2023 email detailed his inability to identify the professor, which was clearly not true. So now we have Liggett, Holman, and McClellan all lying about the identity of this professor. After filing the Franks memo, Jerry Holman was forced to interview this Purdue professor before the professor learned that he was missing. Holman interviewed the professor the very next day, which means he had his identity. Holman's report memorializing this meeting is filled with multiple falsehoods, okay, and mischaracterizations regarding the conversation. In what appears to be an attempt to water down Turco's opinion that it was a given that someone was trying to replicate a Germanic runic script, Holman memorialized Turco's conclusions as inconclusive. Holman continued to lie. Okay, Turco's conclusions were not inconclusive whatsoever. Turco was clear in his opinion and that of a friend, a Harvard expert, that the sticks found at the scene were an attempt to replicate Germanic runic script. He just couldn't say for certain what the intended meaning was. Holman also attempted to deceive those reading his report when he wrote that Turco stated no evidence or research indicated that those involved in Odinism practice ritualistic human sacrifice. Holman chose not to include Turco's actual words that the stick configurations were pretty clearly runic, and that he could certainly imagine that this was someone's idea that when you do human sacrifice, you carve runes. Okay? Furthermore, Holman attempted to deceive the reader of the report by implying Turco totally disregarded the possibility of involvement of human sacrifice. That's not what he said. Holman certainly understood that on August 10th, 2023, he didn't tell the truth under oath at his deposition. Okay? Holman did not account for what was in the Franks memorandum, or that the Franks memorandum would be filed in September, and the Franks memo would call out Holman and McClellan for claiming they could not identify this professor. Okay. And so you see it goes on, but I think that gives you the brief indication of how Holman and McClellan together in partnership were intentionally misrepresenting the truth, to put it nicely, about not only who the Purdue professor was, but what his opinion was. And see, what happened is we got some things around here called cranks. And what they never expected was that the cranks would manage to get their dirty paws on the actual recording of Jerry Holman talking with Jeffrey Turco. The state of Indiana not only tried to hide this from the defense team, to prevent them from learning of this exculpatory information, they also tried to hide it from the public. And unfortunately, I think tonight you all are going to get a good taste of what was actually said by Jeffrey Turco regarding the crime scene. And we want to present this to back up Vinnie's point there, that the information regarding the crime scene, the Nordic connection and the human sacrifice or ritual connection, was all kept from the jury to keep them from having the whole picture. And it's very important that you all know the whole picture, and the jury should have known it. And so hopefully we get to pull this off tonight.
All right, Jeff, this is I'm Jerry Holman with the Indiana State Police. With me is Lieutenant Matt Rosenberger with Purdue and Professor Jeffrey Turco. It is Tuesday, September 19th, approximately 3:09. And I appreciate you being with us. I know Matt's been trying now for three or 4 weeks to find the time, but I'm busy, you're busy, we're all busy, but I appreciate it. It should only take maybe 10-15 minutes. Do you recall meeting with a state trooper probably back in 2017 and an FBI agent talking about the Delphi double homicide? That's right. And do you recall doing a report, or was that report that we have from the
There was
colleague.
There was a document. No, I did, to my knowledge, I'm the only person who put anything together for them. There was a document.
This being, you can look at
Yeah,
it.
that looks... Yes. Yeah.
And do you remember did you give that to them that day, or did you email it to them later?
I think I emailed it.
Okay.
Or maybe I had a paper copy, I don't recall. Yeah. Yeah, this is mine.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. And they gave you, they didn't show you crime scene photos, but they basically gave you like a sketch of the formation of the sticks.
That's right.
And then did they give you a picture of the tree that had the F on it?
No.
Okay. Just the sticks.
Just that kind of rendering there. Yeah.
Okay. And
well, what happened?
What, 6 years probably since
I'm alone.
Since you wrote this. And don't let me put words in your mouth if you want to look at this. But from what I gathered, and I talked to Steve Buckley was the trooper, and Nicole Robertson was the FBI agent.
That's right.
Okay. And when I talked to them, Steve Buckley said, "Oh no, I didn't get a report." So I'm thinking later on we got a hold of Nicole, and she got the report somehow from.
Huh.
So
I'd have to go back and check my email.
Not a big deal, but he said basically you told him that when you looked at it, it basically could be anything, and I think you kind of put this in your report. You're like guessing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly appears to be some sort of attempt at a kind of runic script, but as to deciphering any meaning behind that with any certainty, that's a bit of a guessing game. I would have to go back and read what I wrote, but I recall tossing out a couple of sort of hypotheticals, maybe this, maybe that. But I think the idea that somebody is trying to kind of replicate a kind of early Germanic runic script, that seems, I think, a given. But,
yeah. And what exactly do you study or teach?
Right. So I teach German literature and religious studies, and one of my areas concerns medieval Scandinavian religion. So I'm certainly not an expert on contemporary 20th and 21st century sort of reimaginings and reinterpretations of that tradition. I know a little bit just because of just general interest, and then also I did some homework when I met with the other officers. But
did you reach out to a colleague? It says in here a colleague and I.
There was a colleague who I'm not an expert on runes, runic inscriptions per se, which is a very specialized area, and I have a colleague now retired at Harvard who I showed, without any real details or explanations, showed the stick outlines, and we tossed ideas back and forth, and what he had to say kind of wound up subsumed in my report.
Was he actually in Germany at the time that you reached out to him? Do you recall?
No. Well, geez, I don't know offhand.
That's what I was told, but they may not.
He may have been traveling at the time. Yeah.
So what I'm learning about runes and the Odin background, it is a religion, correct?
So basically, what you're looking at is a kind of contemporary, medievally inspired movement that doesn't necessarily have all that much to do, right, with medieval and ancient traditions, but takes its sort of point of departure, sort of these mythological sources that come down to us in the 13th century. And in point of fact, there's not, and this is maybe getting a little bit too much into the weeds, but there's not a great deal that we can say with certainty.
You guys hear Holman
actually
steering him away from the actual
we're always
truth.
Dealing with
Listen closely for how Holman is trying to pull him away from what he's saying.
Things through that lens. But what you have in really in the very late 18th century, and then really throughout the 19th century. And this is
also. Did you hear Holman say the tree with the F on it?
Nationalist
F.
movements, throughout.
Yeah, he said the tree with the
Europe,
F on it,
right, where
right at the
there is
beginning.
no such thing as Germany, right, until 1872. There is no such thing as Italy. You have these sort of loose confederations, and so they go looking back for great sort of ancestor traditions on which to kind of found this idea, right, of the nation, right? And so this is sort of part of what comes to be known as Germanic mythology. You probably know the Brothers Grimm, the fairy tales. They also collected a lot of the earliest sources and edited these texts that were written in Icelandic, which is what most of what comes down to us is written in Iceland, so there's a great deal of interest in this tradition, but this kind of neo-heathenism or neo-paganism, of which Odinism would be sort of one kind of extreme ideology within that has sort of right-wing racist connotations. That sort of really comes into its own in the 20th, late 19th, 20th century.
And listen to this point he's going to make about right-wing versus left-wing.
There are sort of so-called neo-pagans, and neo-heathens. The heathen term tends to be more associated with the right, pagan more with the left, but essentially they both are referring to this sort of revival of Norse
heathen,
religion,
pagan,
which,
Wiccan.
Often has precious little to do with the original sources, because people are just kind of making things up because this stuff is up for grabs, right? But that is to say that the fact that somebody is referring to themselves, as an adherent of, what's sometimes called in Icelandic, it's Asatru, A-S-A-T-R-U. This just means belief in the gods.
This is exactly what Westfall
is. They believe in just one god, Odin.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Vinlanders and Westfall, Asatru.
The pagans believe in Odin, but
the pantheon,
other gods.
So Odinism, as far as I've ever encountered the term, is sort of always associated with a kind of fringe, racist, sort of right wing, sort
but
of.
The pagans and the Asatru,
they're all over the place.
They're not as racist, though.
They're all over the place.
There's a political range between sort of far left hippie crunchy sort of feel good kind of 60s nature loving, tree hugging, that kind of thing, and then the other end of the spectrum is sort of neo-Nazis in lockup with runic tattoos who hate black people,
our guys,
and whatnot. So the fact that interest in sort of Norse religion in this country, I think it's more of a right-wing phenomenon. In Europe, it's more of a left-wing phenomenon, but it's not necessarily sort of a smoking gun.
Interesting concept there.
And again, my knowledge of this is way low.
Yeah, of course.
But human sacrifice back in hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years ago was something, but in today's society and over the last couple hundred years, what I've learned is human sacrifice isn't something that this religion would do.
It's debated whether that was ever part of Norse religion, and it may or may not have been. The archaeological record is very inconclusive. There were certainly executions. People were thieves who were hanged and whatnot. Now, you look at it, you find a body that's preserved in a bog with a rope around its neck. You're a detective. You tell me.
Not a very good one.
Is it
you find some girls in the woods with their throats slit and runes on them. I mean, do you know?
Is it a human sacrifice? People argue back and forth. I think what's probably more important from your perspective is that it's widely believed in the 19th century sources, which are the kind of things that are freely available online. When you Google, that comes up that yes, like the Vikings practiced, ritual killings, right, and sacrifices. That would be an idea that somebody who was interested in this material from a certain perspective would come across, likely.
Right. Yeah. But realistically, history says that this type of
it's not documented.
It's not documented that there are rituals. They're not usually practicing ritualistic sacrifices of humans.
Leading the witness.
Not any part of any sort of mainstream
chickens.
Animals. The usual, goats and things.
And what I was told by someone that had some knowledge is a sacrifice.
There were goat heads found at Ron Logan's?
Time, money. For example, like they compared it to Christianity.
Yeah.
You take time out of your Sunday to go to church, and then you give money to the church.
Yeah.
And that they would do that in a different way, where you would give your chicken that lays eggs away, because now you're sacrificing your eggs or something like that.
Our knowledge of actual ritual practices within actually existing historical Norse religion is very, very thin, because the sources that come down to us are written by Christians 250 years after conversion, and there's a distance from sort of the lived daily experience of religious adherence, or they just don't know, because the knowledge was stamped out. So what you're often dealing with are sort of people's ideas in the 19th century of what things must have been like, but often it's and a lot of that gets codified and gets accepted sort of uncritically, and then killjoys like me come around and say, actually we don't really have any good sources for that. But again, in the popular imagination, I think there is this idea, that and there is some textual support, that somebody who was kind of reading up, on Norse stuff would come across that idea. Odin sacrificing warriors, to himself and whatnot. That's in there, but is that just sort of literature, or is that what really was that how things really were? These are kind of academic questions,
right? And what I was told too is when they do those rituals, they're usually so obvious of the actual ritualistic part of it, like
minimizing.
There would be no question. Like we have questions on, is this really? And you have questions on this.
Yeah.
But what little research I've done is, if it's a ritual, they're going to let you know it's going to be so clear that you could tell.
That could be, that's certainly a good point. It's hard to sort of imagine sort of getting into the head of somebody like this,
But something like this that we asked you to review, obviously 6 years ago, was so vague.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good term, but
there was not a lot of detail.
You couldn't really tell. Now you said if something along the lines, again, don't let me put words in your mouth, but if it is this, it could possibly mean this, but it's really hard to tell because it's...
In terms of deciphering sort of what characters are being used, if they are runic characters, and runic is just an alphabet, right? It's just an alphabet. It's not a language. It's a pre-Germanic...
so you see that Holman is reading the prior report.
In Scandinavia, it's used in England.
And he's now coming to try to get him on the record and backtrack his prior findings in the written report.
Christian Latin poems, very few recorded in runic script. So it's just an alphabet, the same way that we use the Roman alphabet to write English, but also to write Turkish and Romanian and whatnot. So the letters, the characters all are, it's sort of, again, one of the ideas about them is that they originally have magical significance, that they would have been used in incantations, in rituals. There is a sacrificial connection in the mythological poetry. These are things that, again, somebody who was sort of, an Odin fanboy would likely come across. So it's entirely plausible that looking at, those configurations, again, I didn't see the photos, but just looking at the outlines that somebody else thought was part of the of an attempt to render something in characters. It looks pretty clearly like runic, and so one can certainly imagine that this was somebody's idea that when you do a human sacrifice, you carve runes. There are some poetic sources that would sort of
pretty clearly runic
that idea that somebody might have come across. So that scenario seems entirely plausible to me.
Entirely plausible.
I don't remember what I said about the characters, but I think that was.
I think what
about
again. Don't let me put words in my mouth. But what was relayed to me was it could be anything because it was not very deliberately put, or it could be like you said today.
Yeah.
It could have just been an amateur trying to do it.
Yeah.
But what I
it could have been an
Sergeant
amateur
Buckley
trying to do it.
Had relayed to us was it's tough to say because it was not very clear.
Mm-hmm.
So they were telling us that it was basically it could be anything, but you didn't at that point think it was anything, I guess.
No one specific thing.
Right.
I mean, I think I recall throwing out a number of ideas, none of which were terribly, conclusive. Because the interpretation of runes is also rarely conclusive.
Right.
The meaning can be obscure. Is somebody trying to spell something phonetically, or are they trying to communicate something symbolically? Right. Because the runes have names, and they mean different things. Right. So one of the runes means giant. Right. So there's a giant rune. There's another rune can mean property. Right. Movable property. Cows, animals, things like that. So you can approach it from kind of at least two different angles. Right. One would be phonetically. Is it a word? Is it an acronym? Or is it some kind of does this person know what they're talking about?
Right.
Or is it just, hey, this looks cool?
Right.
So
with your experience, you could not look at these runes and say that is a
you see, leading
spiritual sacrifice, ritual. Plausible, but you can't say for sure yes or no.
Plausible.
No, I'm not a runologist,
right.
And even the fellow that I talked to is, much more knowledgeable about runes than I am, and is published, on runes, is not, before his retirement, was not sort of a full-time runologist. If you would like me to put you in touch with somebody.
What did he say? Do you remember?
Whatever he said made it into my report.
Okay.
I think we kind of came to an agreement about sort of what it could be and what it couldn't be. And
I know you use the word guessing. We're guessing.
Yeah. This kind of educated guesses.
Educated guess.
I mean, it's not a random assortment of sticks.
Right.
It's not a random assortment of sticks.
That seems very unlikely.
Okay.
But
it's very
there
unlikely.
Are people who are runologists full time.
If you could give me that, I'd love that.
Yeah, I mean, this would probably be somebody in Europe, like Norway or something like that.
I'd fly over there.
Okay.
For sacrifices.
Yeah, okay, sure.
No, but if we could at least get an email or something.
Sure.
I'd love to reach out to them.
Yeah, I'll see you. There's one guy who comes to mind in Norway who I think is maybe the best. I'll go home and do some homework.
You have his contact information.
Yes.
And I think I have yours. I'm quite certain because during my deposition I brought you up. It took me a while to figure out. Buckley couldn't remember your name.
Oh, okay.
Nicole couldn't remember your name, and then we got the report, and then we figured out by calling Matt who might teach this or have knowledge of it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn this report over and your information over and
Feel free,
discovery.
Yeah. Sure.
And that means that the defense attorneys will probably contact you as well. So
okay. Oh, interesting. So there's obviously, it sounds like there's movement in this
trial.
matter.
Yeah, the trial is actually scheduled for January of next year, but I don't.
So there's an accused.
Yeah, we made an arrest back in November, I think.
Is that public?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been public.
Oh, wow.
You must not watch the news much, huh? Me either.
I didn't catch it. Yeah.
Good. You want to be on the jury? Most people know about it.
I guess could I be at this point? I think I'm probably.
You want to be on the jury?
You're going to be a witness, probably.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you think of anything else, please let Matt or I know. And
the only thing else I can think of is I'm supposed to say hello.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How did you know her?
Well, she works downstairs and is one of my favorite people on the planet.
She's a sweetheart.
And she asked me what I was doing, and I mentioned that I was meeting with you.
That was a surprise to her.
And I don't think anything really phases her. You know. And she said, "Oh, that's my second cousin." You know.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. I'm going to conclude this interview. It is approximately 3:30. All right, Jeff, I'm Jerry Holman with the Indiana State Police. With me is Lieutenant Matt Rosenberger with Purdue and Professor Jeffrey Turco. It is Tuesday, September 19th, approximately 3:09. And I appreciate you meeting with us. I know Matt's been trying now for, 3 or 4 weeks to find the time, but I'm busy, you're busy, we're all busy, but I appreciate it. It should only take maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, for sure.
Do you recall meeting with a state trooper probably back in 2017 and an FBI agent talking about
2017
the Delphi double homicide?
That's right.
And do you recall doing a report, or was that report that we have from your colleague?
There was a document. No, I did, to my knowledge, I'm the only person who put anything together for them. There was a document.
This being, you can look at it.
Yeah, that looks... Yes. Yeah.
And do you remember did you give that to them that day, or did you email it to them later?
I think I emailed it,
okay.
Or maybe I had a paper copy, I don't recall. Yeah, this is mine.
Okay. Perfect. And they gave you, they didn't show you crime scene photos, but they basically gave you like a sketch of the formation of the sticks.
That's right.
And then did they give you a picture of the tree that had the F on it?
No.
Okay. Just
you can
the
stop
sticks.
That just that kind of rendering there. Yeah.
Did they give you the picture of the tree that had the F on it?
What, 6 years probably?
Stop
since?
it. Yeah. That's it. I just wanted to let that play again. So that's it. I mean, it's pretty clear what's being said.
Sorry, I had to ban somebody. Shane Meehan's friend made an appearance in here while the audio was going. Yeah, go ahead, Prof. Because I've got notes I wrote down. Critter Mama still wondering if this has a Kentucky connection. I very much suspect it does, and actually, there are 2 other cases that I and others are looking into. Chris and I have been looking into one of the cases for years. Another one was just brought to our attention about 8 months ago. And folks are convinced that could be, there could be some connections. So if anybody's familiar with the Austin Gomez case out of Kentucky, because here's the thing. The meth distribution runs from Northwest Indiana all the way down to Southern Kentucky. This isn't an opinion that I formed. It's fact. I have that confirmed. I have communications about that. Sorry, I was just looking at some comments. So there are Kentucky cases that I and Chris and other PIs and other investigative reporters and other law enforcement agencies are looking into to see if there are additional connections to Delphi and beyond. Like Evansdale, that's been mentioned, a few times, the Stevenson murders. There's one Ohio case, possibly 2 that could connect. Somebody came forward from Wisconsin and said they think that their loved one's case could be involved. So there's a lot that connects. I don't necessarily want to say all these names yet until we, put more pieces together. But this thing has many tentacles. Does it not, Prof?
Yeah. Let's play number 4.
Steph, yes. You asked, I'll answer. Andrea Knable, yes. There are allegations. Okay. I don't want to give away what we know about this case. But Andrea Knable's disappearance may have been tied to her work, but not a case that she was working on. It would be more for who it was she was working. So if you're familiar with who Andrea was working for when she was doing PI and missing persons advocacy, then that can lead you in the right direction. And her former boss spent some time in prison for fraud. So we'll leave it at that for right now. Go ahead, Prof.
No, and I also think, I mean, we're going to get into this next, but Dr. Perlmutter is absolutely convinced, not only on this Delphi case, but on other cases that are nearly identical. And I'll leave that at that. But that'll be forthcoming. But let's listen to clip number 4, because that goes with this segment here.
The jury never heard about any of this. And this was a big part of the defense theory of what happened.
Yes, and I always reiterate this, Vinnie. People seem to think that the defense came up with this theory. They did not. The FBI came up with this theory. It started out with Greg Ferenczi's memo, which I believe was like 26 or 27 pages long. And then it developed by the defense team into the Franks motion, which was, excluded by Gull as well, but very specifically laid out, not just, like, as you said, the ritualistic aspects of the crime scene, but then also all of these people close to and around the cemetery. Ron Logan, where the girls, whose property the girls was found, or the girls were found on. Ron Logan's ex-girlfriend came forward, spoke with me and many others, and she's adamant that he has sadism aspects in his background, that he was very abusive, that he had a tendency to view CSAM. Then you have Keegan Kline, who actually lured the girls to the crime scene that day, or to the bridge that day, who has this background as well of all of these ritualistic aspects.
Where's the lies? Where's the lies?
Which one are you looking for now, hon?
Well, after the next one, so that in that one we covered Turco, we covered the runes, human sacrifice, Dr. Perlmutter, FBI, Frank's memorandum, and then Logan and Kline. Logan and Kline, all part of a single picture, all pieces of a single puzzle. And this is what everyone is trying to distract you from.
Mm-hmm.
Let's listen to number 5 now, I guess, because number 5 is going to bring us into the next step here. Oops.
It should catch.
There is an inmate who has come forward. His name is Reese Davis. And Reese has spent time in a facility with both Keegan Kline and Ron Logan. And he has claimed in multiple letters to the prosecutor that Keegan Kline confessed to him, as did Ron Logan, that they were both present and responsible for these girls' deaths. And that a letter, a handwritten confession by Keegan Kline that was sent to the prosecutor has been withheld as exculpatory evidence and exonerates Rick Allen.
This letter that you're mentioning, is this something that's been alleged? Has anyone seen this letter?
So when the defense received, don't quote me on this, I think they said they got 3 letters and Reese said there were a total of 4. And so there is 1 letter unaccounted for. And according to this inmate, it is the letter in Keegan Kline's own handwriting that he committed this crime along with Ron Logan and others.
Let me pause it for a moment and comment on that. There were 3 letters that Reese sent separately, each one containing multiple letters, because he's conserving the postage that it comes at a high cost for him. 2 of the letters that didn't include anything handwritten from Keegan Kline, McClellan eventually acknowledged to receiving. The third envelope, which contained multiple letters, including one in Keegan Klein's handwriting, is the exact one that suddenly he cannot locate. McClelland cannot locate. It's gone in the garbage, right? Despite the fact that the outgoing log at Newcastle shows that that letter went out to McClelland. Well, the kicker here is there are more letters in Keegan Klein's handwriting. And that's a bombshell for you guys tonight. There are more letters specifically detailing this crime in Keegan Klein's handwriting that exist and that are in the hands of the people who matter. So despite McClelland attempting to hide Keegan's own handwritten letter by not being able to find that third one, there's more to come on that because Keegan wrote multiple letters.
Everything that went to a third-party defense was excluded. Nothing. He wasn't allowed to put on a defense, period. I sat 10 feet away from him. He was not allowed to even put on a defense. The trial lawyer's hands were cuffed. I cannot express that enough. And that is why cameras were not allowed in that courtroom, because what happened in that courtroom is a crime.
Another part of this case that's been very confusing to me, and I think to a lot of people, are the sketches involved in the case. Sketches that the jury never saw. Again, something else that was the judge did not permit this jury to see. The first sketch I want to show you is a result of a description by a woman named Betsy Blair, who was in that area that day. Take a look at this sketch. And let me give you the background here. This sketch was made just a few days after the attack, okay? But it was never
17th.
released to the public. For whatever reason, investigators never released this sketch until April of 2019, when Betsy Blair, remember, April 2019, the case still isn't solved. And Betsy Blair's like, why have you never released this sketch of the description of the person that I gave to you? And if you look at this sketch, right, it looks like someone in their 20s. A young guy in his 20s with some curly hair. It almost looks like an early picture of a member of NSYNC or something. Like it's not an older middle-aged man that is described here by Betsy Blair. Now, this sketch again isn't released until April of 2019, despite the fact that it was done in February of 2017. Let me show you now a comparison of that sketch to the one that was released to the public. Okay, on the left again is that original sketch from February 2017. But 3 weeks later, a description is given that results in the second sketch that you see here. What's interesting about the timing of this sketch is it's not immediately after, it's at least 3 weeks later. And it's also, the sketch is made after the release of the Bridge Guy video. So the public knows what the suspect looks like already, and then you get this sketch. Now, you look at the sketch, you look at the Bridge Guy, you look at Richard Allen, and I see a consistency, a match, right? It makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense, though, is the sketch all the way to the left that was done just a couple of days after the girls were murdered and before.
Whoops, did I do that? Sorry, I misclicked, guys.
It's okay.
But what I wanted to say, what I was going to say about that Bridge Guy image, you can clearly see the nose and the chin and all that don't match.
Part of this case.
Let me see if I can find that spot. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen.
The jury never saw. As a result of a descriptive sketch until April of 2019. It looks like someone in their 20s, April of 2019, that original sketch from February.
Okay, look at the Bridge Guy image over there. We've made many versions of that screenshot from every single frame. Remember back in the day? That nose is not Richard Allen's nose. Okay. So despite the resemblance of Richard Allen to this old guy sketch with the hat, you could loosely make that connection. You look at the actual bridge guy image, the nose and the upper lip and all that, it doesn't match in the chin. But I'll let it keep playing because it was nearly over when I accidentally clicked it.
2017. But 3 weeks later, a description is given that results in the second sketch that you see here. What's interesting about the timing of this sketch is it's not immediately after, it's at least 3 weeks later. And it's also, the sketch is made after the release of the Bridge Guy video. So the public knows what the suspect looks like already, and then you get this sketch. Now, you look at the sketch, you look at the Bridge Guy, you look at Richard Allen, and I see a consistency, a match, right? It makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense, though, is the sketch all the way to the left that was done just a couple of days after the girls were murdered and before.
And that's it. Let's see. That also was a little mistimed on the clip, but could you pull up the one that starts with 250304?
Hold on.
No.
Sorry, I'm coming. Sorry, guys. It was weird the way, that's not it.
I'll tell you when to stop. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, circling on back to how that clip started with Reese Davis. I just wanted everyone to see, especially the new viewers who've never seen a single live on Delphi, so that you understand how this ties into the actual trial and the pretrial motions and all of this. So Reese Davis' letters provide exculpatory information that supports the defense theory and negates the state's theory, and provides other information the defense could have utilized for trial and to support its request for third-party suspect evidence. A key suspect confessing to murders is exculpatory evidence, as it tends to establish a criminal defendant's innocence. At a minimum, Carroll County local rule required McClellan to immediately turn those letters over to the defense, the Reese Davis letters. Even if McClellan believed the letters did not need to be turned over because of Davis's claim that Richard Allen was involved in the crimes alongside Klein and Logan. McClellan's claim that he was not obligated to turn over letters because of Davis's claim that Richard Allen was involved is not a judgment call for McClellan. Richard Allen was at home on the evening of February 13th, 2017 with his wife. And in the morning of February 14th, according to Davis's letters, Klein indicated that Allen was with them during that night and morning assisting in the murders. It is McClellan's obligation to turn over exculpatory evidence to the defense and let the defense determine how to proceed. When the police or prosecutors conceal significant exculpatory or impeaching material in the state's possession, it is ordinarily incumbent upon the state to set the record straight. So the question is not whether the defendant would more than likely not have received a different verdict with evidence, but rather, in its absence, that he received a fair trial understood as a verdict worthy of confidence. In this case, Keegan Klein's confession to the murders and also Klein's claim that Ron Logan was involved are clearly exculpatory statements. Those were the two most likely suspects during the investigation. If it could be shown that they knew each other, this would be a significant fact for the court to consider when determining matters of third-party suspect defense and also for a jury to consider. The fact that Klein also implicated Allen would not have been of a concern to the defense, as the defense knows that Allen had no linkage to either Klein or Logan, which is a proven fact. And also because the evidence supported that Allen was with his wife the night of the 13th and morning of the 14th, when Klein is claiming Allen was with Logan and Klein committing the crimes. Had defense known of the information contained in Reese Davis's letters, it would have renewed its motion for third-party suspect defense regarding Klein and Logan, and would have further investigated these claims. Perhaps the defense would have sought a continuance to investigate the ties between Ron Logan and Keegan Klein. The defense could have argued that Klein knew details of the crime that no one else knew, and furthermore, that he was protecting an unknown third party by claiming that Allen was part of the group. The defense could do none of that. The details that Klein provided Davis add to the exculpatory value of these letters. On page 4 of one of those letters, Davis claims that Klein detailed the girls' bodies were moved 3 times and they were not killed where they were found, and their bodies were staged. Facts consistent with the defense's theory and that opposed state's theory. Furthermore, in the letter, Davis claims that Keegan Klein detailed how the killers got nervous and left town in their own cars, with at least one of them going to Lafayette to dispose of evidence. Reese recorded that Keegan Klein told him the scene was staged and further mentioned the girls could not be moved because the search parties were everywhere. In February 12th, 2025, an interview at Newcastle, Reese Davis provided further details. In that interview, Reese claimed that Keegan stated that the girls were handcuffed to each other. After the meeting, the defense counsel, RJ, Baldwin, and Matt Hoffman viewed the crime scene and autopsy photos to determine whether there were any indicators on the victim's wrist that would support this information that the victims were handcuffed to one another. The admittedly non-expert eyeballs of the attorneys and investigator observed straight lines or striations on the left hand of the wrist of both girls, which, if true, could indicate that one victim walked immediately behind the other with each of their left hands handcuffed to each other, so they could not easily run away. If the defense had received these letters, it would have learned facts from Davis, or more facts from Davis during a deposition, and then had experts view the same photos and determine whether the photos were indicative of the girls being handcuffed. These depositions could have revealed additional information, including whether at some point in time Keegan Klein admitted that Richard Allen had nothing to do with the crimes, as Reese Davis further stated to counsel during a jail interview, and also show that Keegan Klein's claim about the activities of the third person involved with him and Logan was inconsistent with Richard Allen. If the video shows that Davis and Klein talked to each other beyond twice, it could be determined that Klein was lying about how the extent of their communications. Okay, so I'm going to leave you some of this. There's a bunch of it, but all of this in this part of this document, which I'm going to show you the title page so that you can look this up yourself. It's called Richard Allen's Verified Reply Memorandum to the State of Indiana's Response to Preserve and Produce and Request for Sanctions. It's a very long title, but this was on March 4th, 2025. Now, what's important here is that at the time this was written, Keegan Klein had not yet disclosed to Reese that he was lying about Richard Allen, because what further came down the road was Keegan Klein admitted that he was just lying, that when he heard Richard Allen was arrested, he said, yeah, it was him, because he wanted to put it on somebody. Further down the road, what he admitted to Reese was he was lying about that the guy was arrested was involved, and that it was actually someone else, hinting that it was his father. Okay? That all became clear to Reese Davis later, and he clarified that in additional letters and discussions with Andy Baldwin, and it's all on the record. So any insinuation or claim that Richard Allen was involved with Keegan Klein and Ron Logan is absolutely false, because Reese Davis has thoroughly documented the fact that Keegan admitted to lying about Allen being the third person involved, and later clarified that it was absolutely not Allen and he had nothing to do with it. It's all in the court record for any of you to see for yourselves. So I wanted to present that for everyone so that we could wrap up this third-party element that Vinnie was concerned about, and clarify the Reese Davis component in tying Ron Logan, Keegan Klein, and other third parties to these crimes.
Are we on that fifth clip now?
Oh yeah, I'm bringing it up. So I guess, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Eric on that, please drop the questions on that, because from this point forward, the next step is we're getting to the next portion, which is the next to last portion, which will be Betsy Blair. So we're going to now prepare to discuss Betsy Blair's piece of this puzzle.
Oh, no, that was that the one?
No, I think we did that one.
Six.
Now we're on number 6, I believe.
Perfect.
Let's just clarify here. So the sketch that she described looks nothing like Richard Allen. I mean, looks more like Justin Timberlake than Richard Allen from my perspective.
Correct.
Much younger. So what is the time frame and the placement of where she sees this person versus other witnesses?
So, and I'm really sorry to say this, but every other witness in that case that took the stand on behalf of the state and provided a timeline about that bridge was a friend of Libby German's family. That's
fact.
It's a problem for me, Vinnie. And I've never been able to say this out loud. Rayleigh Voorhees, I'm trying to think of the other ones. They're escaping me at the moment. But all of these girls, Bree,
Wilbur.
These are all friends of Libby's and Kelsey's. These are people who wanted closure. That's why we state that Betsy Blair is such an important witness, because she's the only one who provided a specific timeline using an electronic device, a digital device, that we could then, confirm. And she's so adamant about that sketch. And mind you, she also described in her deposition seeing a classic vehicle, like I believe we labeled, or she called it was it 65 Comet, a Mercury Comet, an old classic. Nothing like Rick Allen's, late model Ford Focus hatchback. Nothing that looks like that.
The cars are completely different shapes.
Completely different shapes. And considering the Hoosier Harvest Store video was never even shown in its full entirety for that entire day, all the jury saw were pics of a blob that the police determined was Rick Allen's vehicle. So Betsy's adamant about this sketch. She's adamant about a completely separate vehicle, and she has no connection to either one of the victims. That's why she's so critical to Rick Allen's freedom.
And her sketch comes a few days afterwards, right? And the other sketches are much further down the road?
That is correct. That is correct. And none of these people could specifically pinpoint at exactly what time they saw him, where they were.
And that's your 1965 Mercury Comet, not black. This is your 1965 Mercury Comet. I'll let that sink in for a moment. Any questions?
Betsy did say 10 out of 10 on that sketch, Carla Ann. And I don't know, Carla, if you've had a chance to watch that. I've got it linked in the description, but watch that 45-minute segment that that was 1 hour segment that Vin and I did. I talk about how Betsy became so frustrated that she was trying to push out that information, slip that information in during her testimony. And that Gull basically got really aggressive with her and was like, you can't say that, and that's not allowed in. And it was just, and of course, Vinnie picked up on it. Wait a minute, the judge was engaging with the witness about, it was just weird. And so I go into that a little bit more in depth, but yes, 10 out of 10 on that sketch, and mad as hell that she was not allowed to testify about that sketch.
And Betsy Blair was adamant about this vehicle. By the way,
Yes.
Not only was she adamant about that sketch of the young guy, Betsy Blair was absolutely adamant about this vehicle.
Because her dad owned one. Her dad owned one. Yeah, let's remember that.
Can we pull up supplementary documentary exhibit that I have up next?
Oh, God. Hold on.
This is another thing. I just made a community post because
Is that it?
I wanted to reiterate this. I know a lot of people, this has flown by 99% of people's radar. And the only other person that I've ever heard discuss this, and I've discussed it with, is Peggy O. Okay? Let me read this to you for all the retards in the back. Pardon the language, Erica. This is extremely important. Extremely. Listen to this, okay? Because we're about to put to rest forever the vehicle that she witnessed. It says, Betsy said that she had been shown the video from the Hoosier Harvest store by someone from Indiana State Police. She said it was hard to see the vehicle on the video. She thought it might help her looking at still pictures that could be zoomed in on. It says, Betsy looked at the pictures and picked a vehicle that we have identified as belonging to David McCain. Betsy said that was the closest similar in style with the angle she was remembering. So read that line again, Prof. Oh, sure. Betsy looked at the pictures we presented and picked a vehicle that we have identified as belonging to David McCain. Look at the name at the top, Tony Liggett. Tony Liggett wrote this report. Tony Liggett knew and always has known that Betsy saw David McCain's vehicle. So the question is, where did David McCain park? If she thinks she saw that vehicle at the CPS, this comes from the appellate record. I didn't make this up. This is from discovery. This is a part of the appeal. Why was Betsy Blair presented as having seen Richard Allen's vehicle when she pulled out David McCain's vehicle? Furthermore, let's see. Go to Blair's description next. That's not it.
Well,
let's see.
Nope.
We're playing Russian roulette. With it's coming.
You're killing me.
Okay. I got some shit for you guys. Okay, so let's see. We're going to go backwards. Here we go. I'm sorry about this. Okay. Here is from the direct examination of Betsy Blair. I saw it backed in. Okay. And what else, if anything, did you notice about the vehicle? Just the overall shape of it, and it looked to me like it had sharp angles. It looked like a four-door sedan. Okay, did it remind you of any vehicles you've seen in your lifetime on this earth? Yes. After I thought about it later, it reminded me of a car that my father had many years ago, a 1965 Ford Comet. Okay, then we're going to go to the next one. Direct examination of Betsy Blair. Did you also say that it was not a black car? I don't recall that. Okay, I'm handing you a statement from April the 2nd, 2019. That's the same date as the report we just read where she pulled out David McCain's vehicle. Okay, I'd ask you to turn to page 7 at the bottom, line 25 particularly. Thank you. Does that refresh your recollection as to whether you said the color of the car was black or not? In 2019, I said it could have been black. You said what? I'm sorry? In 2019, I said it could have been black. It could have been. It could not have been. So you see the little fuckery there with Betsy Blair accidentally remembering that it was black, but then when corrected with her own words, she has to quote herself and said it could not have been black. So now we're dealing with a not black 1965 Mercury Comet. And he further asked her, does this document, which is the little line drawing she made, fairly depict what you drew for the police? That is my drawing, yes. Okay. All right. So now let me make sure we're going to get to the sketch now. No, not yet. Oh. Not yet. I'm sorry. Back to that one. Y'all, Erica is controlling the slides. I'm just fumbling here. Let's see. Okay. Now I want to point this out to you guys. This is from the facial identification reference sheet by Trooper Bryant, who drew the sketch. I wanted to point out to you guys very specifically, Look at this information sheet. Sex, male, age, 20. Does that say 20s to 30s? Who's the sex? I mean, what's the sex of the individual she's drawing? A male. What age she's drawing? She's drawing an age 20-year-old male. Okay, 150 pounds, medium build. Furthermore, do you remember giving a statement to the police in March? Yes. You told police he was more boyish looking. Isn't that correct? Yes. And then you also said at another point in time he was youthful in appearance. Yes. Okay. Now we go to that other one, Erica. The appellant's brief. There you go. Okay. The part of the story Liggett did not tell the judge. He didn't tell the judge about the difference between Blair's description of the man and Allen's appearance. Just 3 days after the murders, February 17th, 2017, she described the man as white. Fact, we just saw that receipt. Age 20, fact, saw the receipt. Medium build, curly brown hair, fact. Rated at 10 out of 10 for accuracy. Detective Liggett personally interviewed Blair. Can you go back to that other one, Blair's description? Because I missed something I wanted to point out. If you don't mind, look at line number L. Do you notice where it says hair, that it seems to be partially erased or whited out? Totally illegible. It's the only line on the document that's totally illegible. Just pointing that out. And then that last one I want to pull up, Erica, is image 1434. Regarding Betsy Blair's sketch, okay?
That one I knew.
This is the literal Indiana State Police bulletin clarifying the points about the sketches. I personally retrieved this before it was what do you call it when it's removed from the internet? It's been scrubbed. This has been totally scrubbed. You cannot find this anywhere. This was even redacted in the exhibits that were produced for the trial transcripts. They redacted this so no one could see it. Good thing Prof screenshot it 5 years ago.
They hate you.
Multi-agency task force clarifies points about the Delphi murder suspect sketches. And I'm going to skip. It's important to distinguish these points. They are not the same person. The person depicted in the original resketch is not presently a person of interest in the investigation. The sketch released on April 22nd, Betsy Blair's sketch, 20 years old, is the face of a person captured in the video on Libby's phone as he was walking on the high bridge. The person released on April 22nd is described as youthful in appearance, but could fall in the age range of 20s to 30s. But you just saw that Betsy Blair wrote his age down as 20. This person's appearance could look different today if he's grown a mustache, whatever. And this was written by Kim Riley. Okay, you can see it's Kim Riley, Public Information Officer. April 24, 2019, clarifying for the public the issues about the sketch. All right, we can pull that down, and I think that covers what I wanted to show about Miss Betsy Blair.
You know, I don't know if people realize it, but Kim Riley retired too. He got out of Dodge just like Harder did. And
Diener. And
Diener.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking at comments here. Absolutely, guys. You guys have some great comments. I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to. Yeah, the Adam Bridge thing, I'm still not even halfway through. Prof and I have been deep diving down rabbit holes over this RICO stuff, so we'll get there in a minute. Did we cover everything you wanted to cover with Betsy Blair?
I did, and I just wanted to, and I'm sorry, guys, for being so adamant about showing these receipts, but I want to prove to you all where the lies and misrepresentations are here, because I think that's Vinnie's concern since we're reviewing Vinnie's show. this is all black and white from the court record. I mean, the only thing we've shown you that's not from the court record is that photo of the comet so that you could see what a comet actually looks like. So, this is not our speculation here. We're laying out from the case record the documents to substantiate the claims.
Hang on a second. I'm looking.
But that covers Betsy Blair. I did want to mention, so you mentioned the little girls all having connections to the families, which make them less reliable. And you said, therefore, Betsy Blair is more reliable. And here's what I have to say about that. My opinion, because I've already seen people attacking that concept. Well, let me say this. I've said before, it's odd that Richard Allen does not mention seeing an older lady. So the fact that Betsy Blair may be reliable is kind of making sense. If Betsy Blair sees a 1965 Ford-looking Comet that's not black and not Richard Allen's, okay, if Betsy Blair sees a guy in his 20s, youthful in appearance, 10 out of 10 accuracy, and she's adamant about both of those things. Matter of fact, she fought with the state police for years over that sketch and was furious that that old guy sketch was out there. Okay. Maybe she did witness the 3 or 4 girls crossing over the little footbridge, leaving the area, going back into Delphi. So let's say, what about Betsy Blair's entire witness scenario implicates Richard Allen at all? Absolutely nothing. All Betsy Blair does is confirm that she doesn't see Richard Allen's vehicle. She confirms she doesn't see Richard Allen. We know from Richard Allen's statement, he doesn't see an older lady. He only sees some little girls. So the only loose cannons here now are the little girls, who all seem to be, they were all shown the image of Bridge Guy when they were discussing with State Police and Unified Command, and they all agreed that they saw Bridge Guy. Notice that none of them witnessed to the fact that they saw Richard Allen. I mean, do we have to state the obvious here?
I still don't understand. I just don't get it. I still don't understand why. I mean, I guess, you don't ask the question to which you don't know the answer, but why did we all know they didn't see him? At least Betsy Blair, ask that, ask Betsy, is that the guy you saw? Because no.
I mean, this is why everyone is concerned who has genuine intentions and is operating in good faith here. We are all extremely concerned about this, because before I knew about Richard Allen, I knew about Abby and Libby. Before I knew about Richard Allen, I knew about Bridge Guy. You understand? Before I knew about Richard Allen, I knew about the crime scene from locals. So,
and leading all the way up to into the end of trial, no one, Luttrell, Diener, McClelland, Holman, none of them ever proved that Bridge Guy committed these crimes, that Bridge Guy was Rick Allen. There's again, I reserve my opinions on certain things because these oral arguments are forthcoming. But yeah, I mean, there you go. Sorry, we're seeing some interesting stuff in the comments section, and I'm just letting it fly. So
this is no attack on the witnesses. Although from the very beginning, I've said the witnesses are some lying ass witnesses. I don't mean the little girls necessarily. I mean Cheyenne, Shelby, Daniel Pearson, the other Shelby, family members. I mean, I think there are a whole lot of people, everyone out there that day have told half truths. So if we're looking at Betsy Blair and saying, well, we can establish that she was there, we can establish she saw a 1965 Comet-looking vehicle, we can establish she saw a 20-year-old guy who she swears is Bridge Guy, I would tend to agree with Erica that out of a bunch of questionable witnesses, she's probably the least, or she's
Most
the
credible.
most, how do I even say this? She's the most credible of a bunch of less credible. I see we have that's a troll. That's a troll coming to,
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Betsy Blair is a very interesting, this might be, you remember what was it called? The Christmas movie where the little boy shoots and it ricochets and it shoots himself in the eye. Christmas Story. So Betsy Blair may be the witness who shoots the state in the eye in this one, the state's witness who shoots them in the eye, because what I'm still hung up on my own realization, which only happened last week, that Richard Allen never described seeing Betsy Blair. I just cannot fathom that, because why would he leave that out? And then nothing about Betsy Blair ties or adds up with Richard Allen. So it makes her a loose cannon here. Okay.
That is correct. I wanted to see, let me see here. Violets and Grace, I want you to check out Original Gangster News and tell me if that's who you're looking for, because that's Scott Bernstein. So check him out and see if that's your Scott that you're referencing. Who was it? Great question here, Brittany. What about the fact that we were told this busted open the largest CSAM ring in Indiana from this investigation?
Scrub that too.
Right? I guess the superintendent changed his mind. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, keep in mind both sides of the public commentary here, the troll farm and the controlled opposition. Neither one of them want us talking about that particular aspect of this case.
I got to do some more digging, but a reporter friend of mine sent me some information. BlackRock purchased Dropbox. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
Straight down the rabbit hole.
I know this. There's a bunch of subpoenas that are rolling out right now, and it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to the next year or so.
So, Violets and Greats, great question. I have not been in touch with any witness post-trial or post-conviction. So we were told by the trial lawyers that we couldn't even talk to the witnesses once trial began. I don't know if that's a common practice, because we had Brian Alvey was out seeking Elvis to bring him in. So obviously they had to have communication. They didn't want us engaging with any witnesses with all the problems I think that Gull was given with them. They didn't want allegations of witness tampering or intimidation or anything like that. So once that first day of trial started, we didn't talk to anyone who was already on that witness list. And then the date of conviction, we all gathered right afterwards, and we were told that we could not conduct an investigation moving forward on behalf of those trial lawyers, because everything would shift over to an appellate team. So as a reminder, I am also an investigative journalist, and where Holman messed up is by having me falsely arrested, because my hands were cuffed post-sentencing. But when a cop has me falsely arrested, goes to a TV network with which I'm affiliated, and tries to get them to do a hit piece on me, that makes me a victim. in this situation. And I have the right to seek out and investigate for myself, whether as a reporter or a victim, what the hell happened that caused me to be falsely arrested. So Holman opened that Pandora's box accidentally, and he can't close it now. So great job, Jerry. Great job. I'm with you, Tammy. Who in the hell is in that Dropbox? I don't think it's so, well, it's about customers. What's that I wanted to say? If anyone here is new tonight, I want to make sure they understand. We are talking, this Dropbox that Keegan Kline had, we're talking about locating men who were violating children, making videos of abuse transpiring with children, producing these videos, producing still images, sending them to music. And then you have the selling of those videos, the purchasing of those videos, the transmitting of those videos electronically across state lines, possibly internationally. I think only part of it is about who was violating the children, making them, producing them, distributing. I think a lot of it was about who the customers were. Because there's always just been this rumbling, this rattling of the higher ups, right, Prof? That these higher ups were involved. And you don't have judges signing off on bad warrants. You don't have cops risking their entire careers.
And prosecutors, yeah.
And prosecutors, unless there are some very heavy hitters on that customer list.
Remember Judge Fouts. That's all I got to say.
Bingo.
Jalen Rain had extremely concerning text messages. Okay.
Oh, God.
Have we all forgotten about that? It's still on the internet. Go find it.
Exactly. You know what? I just rewatched her stuff a couple months ago, because if you don't go back, if you haven't watched her stuff, oh my God, just go back and watch her stuff, because it makes so much more sense now. For everything we've learned, everything we know, it makes so much more sense now.
Yeah. And we got, okay. Okay, I'll save that for later. We're working on some cases now that you're going to see in the next week. Okay, we have cops getting tied up in RICOs right now. Got it? All right. Erica, do you want to go through the last clip? Oh, like I'm sweating.
Ooh, there's a Vinnie 7. Okay, yes, absolutely.
That's the last one, and it's a little lengthy, but it covers a lot of bases to kind of wrap up all that Mr. Politan presented. And that's the reason we're here tonight. We're here to talk to all of you guys, but to be thorough, we're going to wrap up his final points, and which these are going to include Dr. Walla, the confessions, and Stacey Eldridge. So that's what segment 7 is about.
I want to mention that Walla thing. I'm so glad you brought that up. All right. I'm going to play this and grab some more Coke Zero. I'll be right back.
He was under constant suicide watch. He had a doctor named Monica Walla. And Dr. Walla took a special interest in this case before Rick Allen was ever arrested. She was listening to podcasts only from the perspective of certain podcasters. And then when Rick was arrested, she volunteered to work as his doctor in this prison system, sought out this particular position. She made a 3-hour round trip commute every day from Illinois to meet with Rick. Rick had a little bit of a history of depression, and she was pumping him against his will, giving him injections of Haldol, an antipsychotic drug. He was being, according to Rick, he was being threatened by the guards. He was being threatened by the inmates. And what is so important about these 61 confessions, I said it on the Delphi Dirt a few weeks ago. I asked every collaborator and content creator and reporter out there to stop calling them confessions and please refer to them as scripts. Okay? Here's why. These were not Rick's own words. None of these 61 scripts were Rick's own words, and that's critical for me to convey here. Rick was given what they called, I think, suicide partners or suicide something, and these inmates were placed outside of Rick Allen's door. He was then pumped full of Haldol against his will, injected. And then the guards and the inmates were reportedly screaming questions at him. And as he was having these antipsychotic breaks, they would ask him questions. Did you kill the girls? Did you kill the girls? I don't know. Did I kill the girls? I killed the girls. Maybe I killed the girls. I don't know. I killed this person too. I killed that person too. Rick was also confessing to killing people who were still very much alive. Then these inmates
and shooting the girls
wrote down, they had a clipboard and pieces of paper. They wrote down anything that Rick said during these psychotic breaks. Oh, I think I did it. I did it. I think I did it. Did I do it? Now, each one of those little statements was then called a confession. That's issue number one. Issue number two is that on the morning that Rick started confessing, the first week of April, they say that the first call of the day was to Kath, where he got on the phone and said, I did it. I killed Abby and Libby.
That's his wife. He's calling his wife.
Sorry, his wife, Kathy, yeah. What they didn't play was the previous call a few hours earlier to his father. Now, that one has not been allowed in yet, and that came out of discovery, so I'm not allowed to necessarily discuss the contents of that, but I will tell you that Rick Allen called his father, Kent, in a panic a few hours prior to all of those confessions suddenly beginning, and told Dad that something was very wrong, that he was being threatened by guards. He was very concerned about Kathy's safety in that moment. He wanted to know did somebody have Kathy? If you can kind of get the impression of where I'm going. There are a lot of allegations of threats being made by guards, guards who were, in fact, as the defense lawyers proved, wearing Odinist patches, had Odinist tattoos, all of these things.
I'll pause it there. Robert Baston is one of those inmates who wrote several times in to say those things were legitimately really happening. And regarding the calls that Eric is talking about, those are recently documented in the newest filings. So that's also factual. So there's other calls in which he questions his sanity, doesn't know what's going on, is afraid, says he's not going to be responsible for anything he says. You know, we know he's being threatened and intimidated, and the lives of his family members.
Top of it, Monica Walla in one of these calls can actually be heard saying and testified to in court that she was writing down some of Rick's little statements too while he was under Haldol, and that she picked up the phone, dialed his wife's number, his home number, and then handed Rick the phone and said, go ahead and read to her what you told me.
The headline is 61 confessions, like you said, but sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to have a little more context. And when some evidence is allowed in and some evidence isn't allowed in, the jury doesn't get the full context.
Perfect point by Vinnie there. I think this is his whole concern. The jury was not told the full story.
And I think that's what the defense is looking for here is an ability to present their side, all of the evidence, so the jury has more information, not less, and can make a determination on, do I believe these confessions? Do I believe this evidence? Do I believe that there's another reasonable explanation for what happened to those two young girls? Perhaps the biggest moment for the defense during the trial was their belief that they had completely blown up the prosecution's timeline of what happened, making it impossible for Richard Allen to have committed this crime. And it was all focused on Libby's phone, and Libby's phone found at the scene. Let me show you a picture of it so you can see it. What they are saying is that the phone, someone was manipulating the phone 5:45 and then later that night. And prosecutors did not have Richard Allen at the scene at that time. So all of that information that was brought out by the defense through their expert testimony saying that someone had plugged headphones into that phone at 5:45 completely obliterated the prosecution's timeline. And now the defense is upset because prosecutors brought in an expert witness who then provided some information to the jury that he Googled, right, just before testifying about it, to undermine the defense theory and the defense expert. Erica, let's talk about the timeline here. And a big part, as I was covering this case, not inside the courtroom, but through reporters who were in there, one of the big theories and themes here is that the prosecution's timeline was broken, that the defense had undermined it through some of their fact-finding in this case, specifically activity on Liberty's phone at 5:45 p.m. Can you put in perspective the significance of that activity, how it relates to the timeline, and then we'll get into what happened at the trial?
Okay. So at 5:45 p.m., Stacey Eldridge, who is the she's the phone expert, and she also trains phone experts for the FBI. She was a forensic phone expert for them as an agent, and now she actually trains law enforcement on these devices and reading these reports. So that's very important for me, to get out here, because Stacey's not a run-of-the-mill expert. She found a activity on Libby's cell phone, her iPhone, that a headphone jack, that something had been plugged into a headphone jack at 5:45, which would have then silenced the phone. And what was specific about that time frame is that phone calls from panicked family members and friends were coming in repeatedly at that time. So if that phone was somewhere in that geofence, maybe it's somebody's barn or in a shed or a shack or in somebody's garage, then that phone could have been heard ringing. So at 5:45, Stacey found that someone had plugged in that port, that headphone jack, something had been plugged into it. And then
I'll say this, just to clarify, almost immediately when the phone started ringing, like immediately, as if someone was holding the phone.
For whatever ungodly reason, and I witnessed this with my own eyes, right after Stacey's testimony, Judge Gull called a quick recess. Indiana State Police technology guy, Detective Cecil, ran out with his laptop, ran out with his phone, and he was doing Google searches during a 15-minute recess, and that he was allowed to come back in. I know this, it was his laptop, because he ran into us coming back up the stairs and almost dropped his laptop. He was in such a hurry.
And I know this story is true because Christine and Erica told me this story like the next day. Okay. For all of you idiots out there who are going to say that didn't happen and she doesn't know what she's talking about. Christine, I believe, told me this story the very fucking next day.
He gets back in, runs in over to Prosecutor McClelland and Latrell and Diener and shows them something. They all get excited. They all do this, she calls court back into session. They do a quick huddle. And all of a sudden, Detective Cecil is allowed to come back up to the stand and testify that he had just done a Google search during recess. And according to that Google search, if the phone had gotten wet, it could have thrown off that iPhone, that jack, and that would have explained it.
This is what the appellate attorneys have now detailed in the as totem pole hearsay.
But Stacey Eldridge was very clear in saying water could not have impacted that headphone jack. So now we're taking a Google search result done in a 15-minute window from an Indiana State Police technology guy over the testimony of a decades-long senior veteran FBI technology phone expert.
Wow. And the other part of that is, like, generally you're not supposed to be able to testify about things that you just Googled. It's called hearsay. And yes, experts get a little more leeway, but usually it's based upon reading some treatise or some study that's been scientifically tested.
Peer reviewed.
Googling and testifying about what you Googled is very unusual. It's not something that most judges would permit, and it's not something that most prosecutors would present in a case. To me, that's the really strange
Former
part
prosecutor
of it. Now,
here.
put it in perspective, though. How important is this 5:45 time? What does that mean relative to Richard Allen?
That Richard Allen had an alibi, that his wife was at home with him. I'll say it like that. That Richard Allen was not with those girls at that time. Couldn't have been. Couldn't have been.
And how does that 5:45 play into the original timeline that prosecutors had?
The state claims the girls, the Bridge Guy video was taken at 2:13, and they claim that Rick abducted the girls at 2:13 and had everything wrapped up by 3:30.
And was out of there.
Completely out of there.
It's important. I want to remind you that the purpose of this episode and looking at this evidence was not that, hey, Richard Allen is 100% innocent. It's that Richard Allen was railroaded and the jury didn't get to hear all the evidence in the case. Evidence uncovered by the police, by investigators, an alternative theory in the case. And in the end, if they hear both theories, they still may very well convict Richard Allen. But our system of justice demands that trials are fair, even for people who may be guilty of murder.
Bro.
So let me say this. When I met with Jason Jensen and Andy Baldwin and Brad Rozzi and Matt Hoffman back in January of 24, I told Andy, give me 2 weeks to make my decision about whether or not I'm going to join this team, because I have some digging to do. I called Chris. We did some digging. And I also said I wouldn't come on board unless Chris was involved, because we share, we're two different halves of a brain. And when we realized that we could be convinced of Rick's innocence, we knew we could convince a jury, a legitimate jury, one that maybe isn't been intimidated or interfered with or played and manipulated. I'll say it like that. But I completely just lost my train of thought looking at the comments. I'm sorry.
Bad habit.
Sorry. And right. And then I started telling Vinnie that he was innocent. And these, these text messages went on for 3 years because I was under the gag order, or 2 years because I was under the gag order. I couldn't talk to press. So all I could say to him is, I'm telling you right now, this man is innocent, and I'll show you on the back end. If we, depending on how this trial goes, you and I will talk about this on the back end. For a prosecutor to recognize that this entire trial was a sham, that Rick was railroaded. Mm-hmm. Chris and I are known for going after guys like Rick. Chris and I are known for taking down these guys. So convincing us was big enough in our eyes. Convincing Vinnie Politan that he was railroaded is huge for me. And I needed his passion post-conviction to get that message across. So I can't thank him enough, because what he did for Rick and for the family is very, I know how much they appreciate it. I've been told how much they appreciate it.
Despite any naysayers. And I honestly think that right now a lot of people are seeing it. People who didn't want to see it until now, because with these compelling appellate filings, they're really convinced. They're laying out facts backed up by evidence that establish a lot of concerns, whether or not you're emotionally attached to Richard Allen or not. And that's what I see in a lot of people that are starting to realize something's wrong here.
Mm-hmm. I glossed over it earlier because that last clip, had multiple facets to it. But I want to touch on the Walla situation for a second. I understand that there's been an accusation made that I guess in a couple interviews, either Vinnie's interview or maybe the one I did with you last week, that I'm slut shaming her, is the accusation. Let me make it real clear here. Monica Walla abused her power and authority of her licensing with her interactions, by her interactions with Rick Allen. Me pointing out that she unbuttoned her shirt and kind of sashayed, that's not me slut shaming a woman. That is me pointing out that someone who has a license to work with the mind intentionally and maliciously abused her authority and her licensing to manipulate a man she was drugging into reading a script, which determined or called confessions. What Monica Walla did is a crime. And she should be prosecuted for it. She should lose her license for it.
She should lose her license. Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if you all have taken the time to see all of the lawsuits that have been filed against that former warden. Was it Gallipow? And Walla. They're named in over a dozen different lawsuits between the two of them. But a lot were desperately seeking counsel from Walla at the time that she was treating Rick, and they were not being given that counsel. They were not receiving their medications. There are inmates who claimed that they were off their meds for long and sustained periods of time because Walla would go straight to Rick, come back out, actually go in, have her meetings with this admin team, probably about what she was supposed to get from Rick Allen that day. And then she would go spend her time with Rick, and then she would leave. And these other inmates weren't receiving care. There's so much more to what Monica Walla did. So let me just say this. Not everybody thinks like Prof and I do. There are a lot of great open minds who are here seeking the truth. There are some folks with closed minds and some folks with minds that just don't catch on. And I'm not trying to be mean here. But if you can't see the difference between me pointing out that a woman in a position of authority abused her position to harm Rick Allen's mental state, then maybe it hasn't dawned on you yet that you're wrong about other things too. Mm-hmm. We have some folks who think they're in the right, and I'm trying to be kind about it, whereas they're not. But maybe you don't understand the enormity of what she did. Maybe you don't understand the enormity of what Jerry Holman and Steve Mullins and Nick McClellan and Tony Liggett and Lesenby. Maybe you don't comprehend that what these men did is a crime. Maybe you just look at them as cops and you see them as untouchable. But they really did commit crimes here. And Walla committed crimes. So I really had to get that across, and I'll get off my soapbox from there.
Well, and I'll chime in on that. No, first, she should have never been appointed to treat Richard Allen, period. It was known before she took the assignment, or she was assigned, that she was a fan of the Delphi murders. It was known. It was discussed. Furthermore, it's in the court record right now that she was listening for 3 hours a day to Delphi podcast. Okay? She listed the podcasts she listened to, who are all either CIs or PR agents for the state. Furthermore, and I'll just put it out there and I'll be a dickhead. I'll be the bad guy. I know, because of speaking with someone who talks to Rick Allen all the time, and you know who I'm talking about. She told me specifically the effect that Monica Walla manipulating Rick Allen using her sexuality and softness had on Rick. So this whole concept of Monica Walla exploiting Rick using her femininity is not an assumption. It's coming straight from Rick.
Yeah, also not an isolated incident. A second person then tried to do that. Just saying.
Probably the same person.
It was the same person.
But no, that's my take on Monica Walla. She should have never been. They knew what they were doing. It was clear. It's in the record. It was established prior to her treating Rick Allen. So this was all done intentionally. It's all on the record. Everything I am saying is absolutely documented. It was known she was a Delphi fangirl. It was known she had visited the crime scene. It's known that she had disclosed that to her employers, and it's known that after the fact, they still chose to send her in there. So that's it on Monica Walla. So look, can we move to the affidavit of Stacey Eldridge to complete our... Stacey Eldridge...
Finally, you get to use this one, yeah.
Yeah. The last point Vinnie made was that the state's timeline was absolutely blown to pieces. Okay, and it absolutely was. And it was blown to pieces by Stacey Eldridge. And as you heard from Erica, Christopher Cecil and Nick McClellan and Judge Gull absolutely lost their shit. They freaked out when this bomb was dropped, and they had to do a Hail Mary pass, and that Hail Mary pass was a Google search, which is an essential component of the appeal, which is why we're discussing it. Okay, that hearsay had an effect, because this information right here we're about to review totally destroyed the state's timeline and exonerated Rick Allen. And Judge Gull facilitated and allowed a Google search to combat this. Okay, it's extremely egregious. Furthermore, I know for a fact the reason Andy Baldwin rested was because he thought this was the nail in the coffin, which means he didn't think hard enough. But this says affidavit of Stacey Eldridge. Okay, she talks a little. Let me get to the meat. I worked for the FBI from 2003 to 2012 as a digital evidence instructor and a computer analysis response team senior forensic examiner. Okay, she's got all of these A through L certifications in every component, including 1, 2, 3, 4 FBI certifications and a Celebrate and Access certification. Okay. She claims in number 12 here that data from Libby's phone showed that wired headphones were plugged into the phone at 5:44 p.m. on February 13, and that wired headphones were unplugged at 10:32 p.m. Eastern on February 13, which coincidentally is the same time Ron Logan's phone is pinging at the crime scene. This was the only evidence of any wired headphones ever being plugged in and ever being removed from the phone. Apple iPhones were equipped with sensors to indicate water damage. Okay, get that? Don't, you know what? I had iPhones all the way going back to like 2005. You got water in your phone and you go to the Apple store. What do? They shine a little light, a special little light in there, and they can tell whether there's water damage, so they don't give you the warranty. Anyway, there's no indication in the data. So she's already talked about the sensor. Now she says there's even no indication in the data from Miss German's iPhone that indicated the sensor identified water damage. I would expect to find evidence of water damage notification that it displayed to the user present on the iPhone. I reviewed the following extractions and reports produced by the state, and she goes through all four. She goes through the 2 Celebrite extractions and the 2 reports, one by Cecil and in 2019, the other by Cecil in 2024. She says none of the above extractions or reports contain evidence of dirt or water damage to Liberty German's iPhone, nor do they indicate that it was dirty or covered in debris. I've reviewed photos of Liberty German's iPhone 6S taken by the Indiana State Police. The phone does not appear to be wet, dirty, or covered in debris in any of the pictures. No pictures were taken of the phone displaying a message indicating that liquid had been detected. No pictures were taken of the control center of the iPhone 6S to document that headphones were being reported as being plugged in when they were not. I reviewed the chain of custody for Libby's iPhone, and it did not document that it was received in a wet, dirty, or damaged condition upon receipt. iPhones that have recent water damage are known to reboot spontaneously, requiring multiple attempts to complete the extraction with a forensic tool. No instances of this were documented or reported by the ISP. I'm currently aware of any, that means 0, scientific or technological research or papers that suggest water, dirt, damage to an iPhone 6S would cause the phone to inaccurately log wired headphones in or wired headphones out. And this is the peer-reviewed type of research or reporting that Vinnie was referring to. So in regards to this phone, as Cecil claims, being wet or dirty and causing that, I think that's thoroughly... You got an ISP guy who goes do a Google search in the forum to come up with this versus a woman who worked for multiple years for the FBI as an instructor who has multiple certifications and has reviewed the entire thing and was the only one in this entire case to even find this evidence. I think there's no comparing. So I think that about rounds out, and like I mentioned, all of this is in the trial record, it's in the appellate record, and it's in the pretrial record. So it's pretty bad.
Oh, excuse me, very bad. That weekend, I was working on a report that Andy had asked me to do, and we went over to Brad's office. We had to copy a whole bunch we had to make a whole bunch of copies. We had to make, I think, like 19 copies of this report for it to be entered into evidence. And he said to me, it was just him and I in the office, and he just said to me, he goes, Nick McClellan is about to get the biggest surprise when our phone expert arrives, when he deposes her on Sunday night. And I was like, why? What's up? And it's like we're huddling in this office alone, and he's whispering, This was bombshell for us. This was what for us as a collective. This was supposed to be that smoking gun that made it impossible for Rick Allen to have been there and committed these crimes. And you had to be in that courtroom to see the eye contact that was taking place between the finder of fact or the alleged finder of fact and the people at the prosecution table, because there was like this wink, wink, nudge, nudge,
Oh shit moment. Yeah.
Oh shit moment. And then all of a sudden she starts looking at her watch and we're going to take a recess. And then he flies out of that courtroom and then comes back in maybe 12. I think she gave us a 15 minutes recess out of this. he was maybe gone 10, 12 minutes, and he raced back in, raced over to McClelland and Diener and Luttrell and Holman, and they're huddled, and it was just like, we got him. When she let that in, Goose's gaming, Baldwin said that, I'm going to put this up here. That's one of those moments where I was as shocked, kind of as shocked as could be that she was willing to let this in. And I'm pretty sure they fought it on hearsay. I'm pretty sure they objected on that. And then it was like, well, he's an expert. I'll give him some leeway. And we're sitting there going, but Stacey Eldridge is the expert that would train him. You know what I mean? If this is
now,
the battle
now
of the
this
experts,
is in the appeal, so now they're fighting this on appeal. So that's what they did. Yeah.
Bingo. And this is just going to be one of these things where, listen, I can't wait for that thing to be broadcast. People are going to be Brittany's got a potty mouth on her. She is fun. I like her. She's fun.
I wanted to say something about this timeline that because, I haven't said this verbally before, but I thought it. So here's the thing with this timeline. Stacey Eldridge's headphones in, headphones out facts destroy the state's timeline regarding Richard Allen.
Correct.
But you know whose timeline it confirms? Reese Davis's timeline. Because Reese Davis, in recounting the statements of Ron Logan and Keegan Kline, puts Ron Logan and Keegan Kline and a few others with those girls at 5:45, 10:32, and 2 in the morning. So interesting that you've got a fact. It's just like Betsy Blair. You've got other facts now that confirm exonerating information and independent information. Remember, Reese Davis's information first came, 2 months after the murders, when he first started contact. I think it was April, maybe, who knows. It was very rapid. It might have been March, weeks or a month or two. Like very soon after the murders, Reese Davis was already offering this up to FBI and Holman, coincidentally. This information has never changed, and it's all documented. And like I say, Stacey Eldridge's information about these headphones debunk the state's timeline and confirm Reese Davis's timeline. Enough said.
Isn't it? Yeah. Again, I really hope that we've got a unified command shit in their pants at this point. Sorry to be so crass, but let's not minimize what Rick Allen has endured. Mm-hmm. Let's not minimize what Kathy Allen has endured, or their daughter, or his sister, or his parents. Rick's story has never changed. Exactly, Tammy. Exactly. And Holman's has, and Mullins has, and hell, McClelland's has.
ISP's has, multiple times.
Let's not forget, I can't remember, was it Brad or Andy who said in the opening statements, I think it was Andy, look for their timeline to change. Look for their version of events and their narrative to change over the next 3 to few weeks, because they will have no choice but to adapt their story to the evidence that we bring forth that's just going to destroy their current narrative and timeline. So watch for them to adapt as this trial evolves. That's exactly what happened. Now, I go back and forth. Did we have a stupid jury, or did we have a compromised jury? And
or an intimidated, frightened, scared jury.
Yeah, I absolutely, knowing that Big Jer loves to throw his weight around. I really think it's B and C. It's just B and C. It has to be. Hold on a second. Do we have a Ron Logan fish tank photo during first search? We never saw anything related to Ron Logan's search. Everything like that that didn't exist in our discovery. That's all I can say about that.
That's all been scrubs, but the crank.
Yeah, it was all scrubbed. It was not in our 8 terabyte hard drive. I'll say it like that. And Digital keeps asking, and I don't want to avoid that question. If I could depose 3 people who I think would blow the case open, they would have to be Holder, Westfall, and Fields. And the reason for that is those interviews are missing. So I don't know what they said the first time. So that to me is like all of those missing gaps. But I feel like I have so much of it already. See, I've been sitting on some stuff for a while that supports what Reese says, completely independent. And when we were listening to that Turco interview tonight, Chris and I kind of played wink, nudge, nudge in the comment section. I think we figured out who Holman's as a true source is during that interview tonight. We think it's a Vinlander.
It's Brian James. He's mentioned in the written. No, let me tell. No, for real. He's mentioned in Turco's written report.
Oh, yeah, it's Brian James.
I mean, in some of that. So, yeah, it's Brian James.
Yep, that's exactly. Son of a bitch, Chris. He figured it out too.
What did I want to say? I wanted to say. Oh, before we end. I wanted to tease that maybe a couple of the other things, but on your clock, because I'm just sitting here.
Sorry, go ahead. Tease.
No, so we got So guys, I don't know you all are aware, but we have had a cop has just been arrested. In what is it called? Little Chicago, or what's the city?
It's called New Chicago.
New Chicago.
But it's actually like a 1 square mile area that used to be the east side of Gary.
Okay, so the newest story that we're tracking is we had the son of an ISP major who is a friend of Doug Carter. This son. Oh, and who is also running for sheriff of Lake County, and he's going to be on the ballot in November. But his son was just arrested, and his son is a police chief in New Chicago. His son and his son's wife, I believe, were just arrested for the trafficking of firearms and suppressors. Okay, they have been indicted by the ATF on multiple charges. Trafficking firearms. They just got arrested. They just got search warranted. They just got subpoenaed. That's a very interesting story that we're going to be covering soon because there's a lot to that. And it's a matter of factual that what they were doing is they were taking seized firearms and probably other ways they were obtaining, and they were turning around and selling them, putting them back on the street. Okay. But we're going to get to that because that ties directly to an Indiana State Police major and Douglas Carter. Okay. Furthermore, we're still working on this, what we are calling the Greek Mafia case out of Northwest Indiana and Chicago. That Operation Porterhouse Parlay, which I don't like that name, but basically, so Rovito has been let out with an ankle monitor from like $1 million bond or something. There's this guy, Gialamas. He's trying to get out. The feds are asking, no, don't let him out. He's a flight risk. And there's a lot of disclosures coming there because of the involvement of law enforcement in facilitating and participating in this RICO case regarding the Greek Mafia that has ties over there to the Giardinos in New York and Boston and over in the Chicago outfit. So we're tracking that. this is turning into a single huge RICO, and all of these cases are being brought down by the feds. We also have another Chomo cop, okay, who was producing CSAM and distributing, and that's new.
Worked for IMPD, Indianapolis Metro Police Department.
IMPD. That's a handful of stories I just spit out right quick. All of that's coming in the next week. So, I got a lot on my plate, and so does Erica, but we're working all of these cases behind the scenes, doing the legwork and talking to locals and get the paperwork. And I still have to finish my final episode of the appeal, which is the very next show I do tomorrow night is going to be the final episode of the appeal. And then we got some new information with Reese Davis also that's forthcoming. So the next week or two is going to be absolutely action-packed, at least in my post and my live streams. And I know Erica's working hard. It's just this it's very interesting because all of this is coming from the feds on down. And it's all hitting Indiana, Ohio, and Chicago. So we'll be talking about all of that soon. So I just wanted to get that out there and do my little promo about what we're working on for the next week for all the faithful followers. Thank you.
No, thank you. Chris and I have been working. I've been working on reporting police corruption and public corruption dating back 35 years. Christine has worked in advocacy and has a history with a lot of the people on the other side. There are just things I can't say.
I was going to say, don't say.
Well, I'm just not going to say, but this is how I'll say it. Back in 2005, there was a Michigan City narcotics officer named Donnie Webb who was arrested by federal officials for putting drugs back on the streets. The same thing that this cop is accused of, only with weapons. Okay? This chief of police, let's make it clear. He's the chief of police, and he's the son of an Indiana State Police major. Yeah, New Chicago. Son of an Indiana State Police major who was endorsed by Doug Carter. I just want to make that real clear.
Yeah.
What Chris and I noticed, we were just talking about this last week, I think it was. I said, back in 2005, when Donnie Webb was indicted by the feds, I said, we had a pattern of a bunch of stuff that started happening. There were signs within our region that criminal behavior was taking place by cops. And it almost, okay, like think of it in terms of Gotham City. And so I made a list with Chris, and it was stuff like an increase in drugs, an increase in prostitution, an increase in teenagers having access to drugs and weapons smuggling taking place, things like that. All of these patterns are repeating themselves. And what we haven't had the chance to dive into yet for you is that Prof and I just got done going through a 66-page motion. Well, I skimmed it. He read every page. But these players, number one, number two, top players in this indictment, are bragging about having dirty FBI, an FBI agent, and dirty local cops in their pocket. We have been saying for the longest time that criminals don't get away with this kind of stuff unless the police allow them to. And what I cannot stress enough is that all of this happened under District 13 command, which is Lowell, Indiana, which is supervised by Jerry Holm.
It's an age-old tale.
There you go.
And
there you go.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I'm out of comments.
Me too.
I'm only going to dig myself a hole now.
Yeah, and I'm starving. Like somebody, yeah, I'm starving. I think I smell meatloaf. So, you guys, I want to thank everybody who dropped in tonight and dropped a sticker or sent a few bucks over. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm going through pens and notebooks like crazy right now and printer paper and stuff like that. So thank you. Every dollar helps. It's much appreciated.
And she's going through Pacer. She's going through Pacer fees because I keep calling and saying, Erica, get me this.
Weird last night, or was it this morning when you're like, how long is that document? I'm like, 106 pages.
All of these documents are 100 pages these days, and I want them all.
My last Pacer bill was $44, and I said, oh my God, it's going to be 3 times that the next time. But Rebby Ann and Quietly and Chris and David Rogers and Mommy 668, thank you all for your stickers, your stuff, the new membership, all of this.
Tammy Martin, Nicole Watt,
all of you guys.
Who else did I see? Carla Ann, I didn't want to miss. Carla Ann, everybody. Monday. Yeah,
it's just we love you guys. We won't stop. We will not stop. It's kind of I'm not going to get in the mud with people. I told you 9 months ago, I was building the RICO case. Doug Carter told you this thing has many tentacles. Please don't think that I'm sitting up here trying to claim that I'm taking down members of the Greek Mafia. That's not what I'm doing. These types of cases, these organized crime cases, have players from so many different divisions and orgs and groups, sects. SECTS, sect of groups. You've got bikers, you've got judges, you've got lawyers, you've got probably some Masons, you've got Odinists, you've got Vinlanders, you've got Hammerskins, you've got a bunch of guys and a bunch. Brittany, we can talk. Shoot me an email, hon. But
yeah, I think people don't realize. I said this to you the other day, but not in the same way, but I'll put it this way for the listeners. You really don't realize, I'm telling you from the inside, you guys don't realize how many tips of a detailed nature have gone into the FBI. Okay. I don't know about all the other agencies because I gave up on forwarding anybody to ISP, but so many tips have gone into the FBI in the handful of years I've been sitting here. You guys would not believe, and I honestly believe that we're starting to see the fruits of some of that tipping. So you got something tipped to the FBI. That's all I got to say.
Oh, God, yes, absolutely. Oh, Deb, thank you so much. You're so sweet. Thank you. Cindy, yes, I miss you terribly. I haven't seen you since trial. We need to do lunch. You guys are just amazing. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for taking the time out to talk with Prof and I tonight. And if you have questions that I didn't get to, leave them in the comment section. I'll drop them on the next one, or I'll do a quick update or whatever. But yeah, it's late here and I'm ready to go. Yeah, I love how crime brings us together. I love how justice brings us together. That's Prof said it earlier. He goes, God, Erica, we're such a dynamo team. We're on fire. And yeah, we really are. We're on fire right now. And we're going to help a lot of people get the truth out there, or we're done with these lies. And so hats off to Vinnie. Smooch is my friend. Just thank you for what he did. And it probably won't be the last time. So, all right.
Yeah, guys, we got a bunch of months left until September when we're going to get these oral arguments.
Exactly.
So now's the time to make a lot of noise. So post everywhere about this appeal and tell people about Richard Allen and what's going on, because we got a lot of time to make a lot of noise. So God bless. Okay. Thank you, Erica.
Yep. Have a great night. You all have a great night. I don't do music on the way out. I guess I should have had Prof set something up, but we'll just sign off. And listen, as we celebrate Memorial Day tomorrow, please, please, please share the message that we have a U.S.
military member being treated as a POW right now inside the United States. That Richard Allen, who served our country with honor, is being held against his will as a prisoner of war in Oklahoma for falsely being convicted in the Delphi case. And I will leave you there tonight. Okay. Good night, everyone.